This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Patterson and Michael Remis.
Hey now, welcome to another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Michael Remis here in the host chair for Hustler, who's made his way down to Costa Rica, took the wonderful route of Winnipeg, Calgary, Toronto, and Toronto South. Him and Jeff Hamilton playing the poker out there. I'll be joined in a second. Connor Hrabchak, Winnipeg Sports Talk Jets reporter, Sunday Live host, post-game host. He'll be joining me in a second as we count down to the Winnipeg Jets game tonight against the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Jets clinging on to any faint playoff hopes they have following that 4-3 win in New Jersey on Tuesday. The Jets now 6-2-2 in their last 10. The best hockey they've played in a while. The road record, some concern there, 9-14-2. But hey, as a competitive one on Tuesday night, they're playing the red hot Tampa Bay Lightning, well, hot all season, winners of 6 straight, 8-1-1 in their last 10, 10-1-1 in the month of January. The Jets are going to have to stick to their structure. Tampa averaging 3.45 goals per game, and the Lightning, when scoring first, 22-4-1. The Jets 2-16-3 when giving up the first goal. So we'll have our eyes tonight on Nikita Kucherov for Tampa. He's got 80 points in 47 games. Brandon Hagel, Anthony Cirelli, the Team Canada Olympians. And of course, we have the Winnipeg Jets top line, Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor, and Gabriel Vilardi reunited. And with the Bombers, we'll be talking some blue and gold here on January. Big signing last night. Receiver Tim White. It's the Bombers' turn to pay it back to Hamilton. They cut Tim White earlier this week or the weekend, and the Bombers announced yesterday they have signed him to a 1-year contract. 3-time All-CFL selection for Tim White. 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons. He brings route running, consistency, and veteran leadership to a team that needed another game breaker at receiver. Dan Ralph of Canadian Press reporting Tim White gets $225,000 in hard money, $75,000 of that signing bonus, a maximum value of $231,000. We'll get to all that throughout the show. A number of great guests. Greg Linnelli, Tampa Bay Lightning host. Get to hear about the visitor or the home team tonight. John Hodge, 3 Down Nation with Bombers. Brandon Rewucki, Skates and Plates. I didn't even mention Ville Heinola with some comments to a Finnish media publication. What is it? Teemu Suvinen, Ilta Santomat. Ville Heinola making some comments about his place in the organization. We'll talk about that with Brandon Rewucki. And Dan Fink, the Manitoba Moose, they're home this weekend for 2 games. Pat Gregoire of Coolbet. Connor Hrabchak coming up in a second. He's walking up to the plate. But first, got to give a shout-out to the sponsors. Winnipeg Jets. Join us, Jets Habs, next Wednesday. WinnipegJets.com/WST. Should be a great night. The final game of the NHL before the Olympic break for the Jets. Uptown Alley, Rolly's Transfer, St. Vital Dental, Canadian Club, Princess Auto, Chud's Power Sports, Manitoba Battery, Clean Line. We'll get to the Clean Line lines. Little Brown Jug, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, and Coolbet. Okay, here it is. Connor Hrabchak joining me now after that extended intro. Connor, how are you feeling here on a Thursday?
Feeling great, Remo. Feeling great. Got my Bombers lid on today after the signing of Tim White. Looking forward to tonight's game against Tampa Bay and a great show today with a stacked lineup of guests. As you mentioned, we're going to touch on a lot of things. Jets game tonight, Ville Heinola's comments, Tim White signing, Manitoba Moose this weekend. Looking forward to another great show.
Yeah, we can get to the Winnipeg Jets tonight. We do have Ken Wiebe on the scene. We're all staying tuned. Okay, what are the lines going to be? And Scott Arneal reuniting the top line that has played so well all year. They reunited last game, and they're rolling it forward. Connor, Scheifele, Vilardi, Perfetti, Taves, Iafallo, Niederreiter, Lowry, Nemestikov, Koepke, Barron, Pearson. And then on defense, Morrissey, DeMello, Sandberg, Salomonsson, Stanley, Schenn, Connor Hrabchak expected to start on goal, and Eric Comrie. That's the clean lines, plumbing, heating, and electrical. Connor, your thoughts on the swap or sticking with what was going at the end there?
Yeah, so Connor, Scheifele, Vilardi, as we mentioned, that Devils game, I mean, they weren't even together on the first goal of the game. Vilardi just hopped on the ice early, and you saw their magic off the rush. Then they later scored a goal later in the game, Vilardi from distance there. I like it. I mean, on the road against Tampa, it's going to be tough regardless. They have Anthony Cirelli. They have Braden Hagel. They control the matchup. Those guys are going to be matched up against the Scheifele line, so that'll be a big matchup. But Perfetti, Taves, Iafallo, I don't mind that second line. Hopefully Perfetti and Taves can keep up the production away from Vilardi. Third line stays the same. Fourth line, Koepke, Barron, Pearson. Hopefully they can bring that speed Koepke and Barron have really brought. And then Morrissey, DeMello, the defense staying the same. No real shocks there. But in terms of tonight's game, Remis, the number one thing I'm watching for, assuming the Anthony Cirelli line for Tampa goes up against the Scheifele line, how big of an opportunity is this for Mark Scheifele if Braden Point doesn't play for Canada at the Olympics? If Mark Scheifele goes into Tampa against John Cooper's guy that he's going to be matched up against and puts up 3 points, 4 points, there's no better way to showcase your talent than against the head coach of Team Canada. And Braden Point, it looks like he's trending towards being available for Canada. But again, what an opportunity it is for Mark Scheifele tonight if he can have a great game against the head coach of the Olympic team.
Yeah, we've seen Mark Scheifele have big games against Team Canada. Team Canada management was it Don Sweeney last year, yeah. And we saw Cole Caulfield go off against the Minnesota Wild, Bill Guerin, the GM. So I think Mark Scheifele's got a body of work. You know what type of player he is, but sure, if you think you've been slighted and you need to get some internal motivation, like the Michael Jordan quote, I took that personally. Look, I think Mark Scheifele said it best. He's done everything he can. He's one of the top scoring Canadian players. Disappointing that he is not on the team right now, but hey, if a spot's open up, I think he would be on the short list. Interesting to note, they did try Tanner Pearson there last game with Perfetti and Taves, but Alex Iafallo gets the bump. He got that stretch there on the top line, and look, the whole team wasn't really going. I know we were screaming, hey, gotta break these guys up. Well, they were on an 11-game losing streak. They got broken up. They started scoring. Well, it kind of dried up. They had one 5-on-5 goal for a 4-game period. And look, it wasn't going. You got to get some goals, and they put them together. It seemed to work. So the thing for me is, we list these lines, Connor, 1, 2, 3, 4, but we've been putting this Koepke, Barron, Pearson line at the bottom. Should we be elevating that to actually the third line with the way that Koepke and Pearson have been contributing lately?
Maybe based on production for sure. The coaching staff hasn't been playing them as the third line quite yet, but I mean, Koepke has 5 goals in his last 19 games. Without looking, I'm sure that's more than all 3 of Niederreiter, Lowry, and Nemestikov in the last 19 games, right? So I would just guess that. But yeah, I mean, Barron has been a player that the fans are, banging the table for him to get more ice time on that fourth line. He's been solid. Cole Koepke, as we know, the speed, the penalty killing, the physicality, all of those things. So we'll see. The Jets need secondary contributions. It doesn't matter if it's from the third line or the fourth line. They need them in any which way. And hopefully the top line against a very tough matchup in Hagel and Cirelli and the last change against Tampa Bay, hopefully they can, still contribute a little bit of offense and work their magic in the offensive zone. And the Jets can get some other contributions because, as we said, coming out of Tuesday's game, Remis, one win is great, But with the spot that the Jets are in right now, one win has to turn into 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and so on and so forth. And it's not going to get any easier on this road trip. Tampa, Florida, Dallas to close it out. This is one of the toughest matchups in the league, going on the road against Tampa Bay. They're the second best team in the National Hockey League by record. This is a tough one. So we'll see if the Jets can get the contributions from the top line that they've been getting and some secondary contributions as well.
Man, Connor, that is, let me move this back. That is a rough stat that you mentioned. That Koepke's 5 goals in his last 19 games, probably more than the third line combined. I looked it up. Nemestikov's got 1 goal. He scored on November 1st. He's got 1 goal since then. Adam Lowry's got 3 goals in his last 28 games. I just highlighted that quickly. He's definitely got more than all of them. So, and that just shows you about the Jets' depth. And look, they all got on the board on Tuesday, and when that happens, they seem to win games. So, and we'll see how it goes for them tonight. And here's head coach Scott Arneal talking about tonight's opponent, the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Through all their injuries, especially on their defense, so many key players out. They, obviously we know Colorado real well, but I got these guys are the second best team in the league. I've been watching them there for the last month and a half and catching them in different places. They're real good, and I think that they're showing it with their play, just how aggressive they are. They come at you hard, both with and without the puck. And this is one of those games we got to be ready to go. We can't have a start like we did in Jersey. This is imperative that we get out of the gate quickly.
What did you see in New Jersey with what you gave up 5-on-5 in terms of how well you defended?
Yeah, I mean, we were good. Our puck management in that game early on in that first period was real poor, and it ended up leading to them getting some quality looks. But in the second period and the third period, we just changed that narrative all around, and we got, whether we had space to skate or whether that was to chip and go get it, we made Jersey turn and go back and play in their end, and that's what you have to do in this league. You can't give teams free offense, and we did that in the first, and Helly stood on his head and gave us a chance to stay in that game, and so that's like I mentioned earlier, that's what we're against Tampa. We're going to have to make sure that we're real sharp early.
There's Scott Arneal saying he's got Tampa behind, Colorado on his power poll of top NHL teams. Connor and I will reveal our Chud's Power Sports power poll at the end of the show. And Tampa, they've had so many injuries this year. Braden Point right now. Hedman's been out. Ryan McDonough has been out. He is back tonight in the lineup, projecting that. And one guy, not entirely a household name, but who has really filled in. And I'm excited to ask our next guest, Greg Linnelli, a Lightning host, Darren Radish, who's stepped in. He's earned himself, I think is he a free agent after this year? His next contract is going to be a big increase. He's on the top line, right pair, and their lines, Hagel, Cirelli, Kucherov, the top line. We did touch on the Jets lines. Connor, here's Scott Arneal talking about Alex Iafallo sliding down to line 2.
Well, that was just the other night. I didn't really like Al's game, but at the end of the day, Al's he's a trooper there, and at the end of the day, he looked at some video, and I still like he's still, when he gets playing with the top sort of 6 guys, he still he does a real good job there, and he knows what to do, how to play with those guys. So I've really liked Tanner with Bear and Koepke. Those guys have been good. So just a quick sort of flip, with Gabe, moving him back up. I thought he was really good the other night, one of our best forwards, and sort of wanted to reward him with going back with those guys.
We talked about that yesterday, Connor. Gabriel Velarde, in the midst of a pretty great season, getting rewarded with some more top-line ice time there with Scheifele and Connor.
Yeah, Remis, I'm not going to lie. What's going on with the lighting there with Scott Arneal? You know the Sheldon Keefe video after they lost 9-1? What's with this overhead lighting? Can we fix this?
I'm not going to. Lighting is challenging. I'm sure he's in a really dark room, and the Jets
looks like
the Jets camera crew. Shout out to the Winnipeg Jets for the video. They probably have a light on the camera. It's fine. We don't need. It's fine.
Okay, no, I'll move on.
It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, Gabriel Vilardi absolutely has been awesome the past number of games. And that game against New Jersey, we talked about it coming out of it. Maybe his best game of the season, one of his best games of the season. And it's going to be a massive challenge tonight because I bring up the Cirelli-Hagel line as a line that John Cooper could deploy against the top line of the Winnipeg Jets, Connor Hrabchak-Vilardi. You bring up that Moser-Radish pairing, Remis. They've played 513 minutes so far this season at 5-on-5. Their on-ice goal share is 27-8 in their favor, 77%. That's the number one rate of any defense pairing that's played over 150 minutes in the National Hockey League together. 150 minutes at this point of the season, not that long. So that's a pretty big sample. They've played 515 together and 27-8. So this top line, the Jets' top six, really, the second line as well, is going to have their work cut out for them. McDonough returns with Chernak. They're going to deploy them as a shutdown second pair, kind of like Sandberg-Pionk when the Jets have those guys going. And then, like Tampa Bay is just, you look up and down their lineup and like, who are these guys? Who are half these guys? Their pro scouts are so good. Their amateur scouts are so good that they just plug and play these undrafted, late drafted players and they turn into quality NHLers. They've been doing this for years. They've been doing this for decades. It's why when I was growing up watching the Hawks and the Lightning go at it in the Stanley Cup final in 2015, and they're still here and they've won cups along the way. Like they just find people and they just find quality players in the middle of their lineup. And despite all the injuries that they've had this season, are the second best team in the National Hockey League and right there with Colorado at the top.
Yes, and that is Tampa Bay Lightning. And one defensive pair for the Jets we've spent some time talking about, analyzing. I saw you had a nice video out on X, Dylan Samberg and Elias Salomonsson. Mm-hmm. And here's Scott Arneal talking about Dylan Samberg's play lately.
He's got a veteran defenseman there helping him along there now with Salomonsson. But you know what? Those two have been real good. Sal's feet and Sammy's feet are the two things that jump out at me the most. They both have great ability to work laterally and work back for pucks quickly. You see a lot of that where they're back and beating the opposition's forecheck, and they're using each other. And like you mentioned, Sammy has helped Sal, and Sal has been real good with Sammy as well.
I feel like Salomonsson's getting a little bit more involved in the rush, and his reads have been better this time around too.
Yeah, I think that there was a lot of firsts for him, and that when he came up the first time, and we were in some tough buildings on the road, and I think now he's a little bit more settled and he feels comfortable and knows how we play each night, and I think that he recognizes when he uses his skill set that he can be a real good defender, and like the way he jumps. So I like the way he's got some real good vision with the puck, and it's great to see that a guy gets an opportunity early in the year and went back down, then came back up and took advantage of that ice time that's put in front of him.
And there's Connor. This Salomonsson-Samberg pair seems to be getting a bit more comfortable as they play more minutes together.
Yeah, 100%. And I totally agree with what Scott Arneal said about, what jumps out to him there is both of their feet, both of their skating ability. Like there were multiple times I counted in that New Jersey game where those guys were both defending in the neutral zone, knocked down pucks, and it immediately led to a scoring chance for the Jets. You want to go back and watch the first goal of the game for Winnipeg? Look at the play that gets made in the neutral zone. Elias Salomonsson pokes the puck away. Dylan Samberg spins off of pressure, fires it to Vilardi, and then it's bingo, bango, bongo, as Paul Edmonds put it on the radio broadcast off the rush. But that play doesn't happen if it's not for that pairing breaking the puck up in the neutral zone. So I think Salomonsson is absolutely more comfortable this time around. You can see it in the poise, his trust in the system to make those plays, to jump up when the opportunity presents itself. He's jumping on more loose pucks. He's playing off of instinct, and it's fun to watch right now. And look, Scott Arneal talked about how his first time up, he was going into some tough buildings against some tough teams. Not to say the teams he's been playing recently haven't been tough. I mean, he got the Matthews matchup on Hockey Night in Canada. He got the Larkin matchup last Saturday. But going on the road against the Tampa Bay Lightning, that's a very tough one as well. So we'll see how this pairing handles itself against what is bound to be a very tough task on the road against the Lightning.
Tough task. Looking at the Coolbet lines tonight, Winnipeg Jets plus 158 underdog, Tampa big favorite minus 189. Quickly moving from the Jets, big Bombers signing yesterday. Last night around like 7:30, 8 o'clock, got the notification that the Bombers have signed receiver Tim White, recently cut by the Ticats. He's a multiple-time All-Star. He has had 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons. For a Bombers receiver group, you're Dalton Schoen, question mark there. You have Ontario Wilson, Nick Dembski, but in need of another playmaker, this seemed like a perfect fit, and we talked about it once he got cut, Tim White to the Bombers.
Yeah, perfect fit, Remis. I'm all in on this signing. It's not only just you're acquiring a good football player, but at a position of need, right? Like we were talking last season when the Bombers brought in Ontario Wilson, it was like, okay, finally Nick Dembski has some help. And you look around that receiving core and no one really broke out. Wheatfall had some games for sure, but this is a great signing for the Bombers for a number of reasons. I mean, Tim White has had 70 catches, 1,000 yards, and 7 touchdowns, at least all of those in all of the last 4 seasons. And he's only missed 2 games in all of the last 4 seasons combined. So he's available, and when he's available, he's great. Last season, we raved about Nick Dembski. How good of a season did he have? Maybe the best season of his career. Tim White, as like the second or third option on the Ticats, would have led the Bombers in catches and yards and tied Dembski in touchdowns last year. So this is just another great receiving option for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I think Tommy Condell being the offensive coordinator for the Blue and Gold played a factor here. Can't wait to ask John Hodge about that, because in Tim White's 2 full seasons with Condell as his OC in 2022 and 23, he led the CFL in catches in 2022 with 94. He was 4th in yards, 6th in touchdowns. And then 2023, top 10 in the CFL in catches, led the league in yards with 1,270, and then 8 touchdowns, was 3rd highest in the CFL. The leader in touchdowns that year, ironic enough, was Dalton Schoen, who this signing probably affects the most. But look, Tim White has been available for the Ticats the last number of years. He hasn't been hurt. And when he's been on the field, he's been a very effective player. He's smaller, but he is blazing fast, can take the top off of defense. So I'm a big fan of this signing, and it comes at a position of desperate need for the Bombers. They needed to address their wide receiver position this offseason. And before free agency even officially opens, it seems like they've done that.
Yeah, the legal tampering period begins February 1 at noon Eastern, so 11 o'clock here. That is Sunday until February 8 at 11. I'm sure more news about CFL free agency will be trickling out during that period, but the Bombers addressing a need. And once he got cut, we thought, that would be a great fit for the Bombers. You had the relationship with Tommy Condell. You had the position of need, productive player. And it's kind of funny at how quickly that came together. Obviously, the Bombers saw it the same way, and last year, they did dip into free agency to help the receiver group with Dylan Mitchell. It really did not work out at all in spectacular fashion. Didn't come prepared, couldn't get out of training camp, and was most recently spotted on a police chase. So the Bombers getting Tim White. And the other name who was cut this week, Austin Mack, receiver with the Alouettes. He had tried out for the NFL. He was on the Falcons, got cut, signed a 4-year deal with Montreal, and then they cut him. For comparable sake, we were saying, hey, the Bombers should be after Austin Mack or Tim White, and Mack's a guy who's battled injuries. He signed a 2-year deal with Edmonton, reunited with former Alouettes quarterback Cody Fajardo. He gets $425,000 in hard money for the 2 years, a max value of $439,000, and a $55,000 signing bonus. Shout out to Dan Ralph from the Canadian Press. So, the Bombers improving at receiver, but Edmonton, who had a really good year once they moved to Fajardo, getting stronger at receiver as well.
Yeah, and this is them leaning into it a little bit too, Remis, because Cody Fajardo was obviously there for Austin Mack's best season as a CFL pro. The year that the Montreal Alouettes beat the Bombers in the Grey Cup, it was Austin Mack who was their leading receiver. He was an all-CFL guy that year, and Cody Fajardo was his quarterback. So that made sense to me. The 2-year deal, Farrell saying $205,000 in 2026 and then $220,000 in 2027 for Austin Mack, a guy that, similar to Schoen, was great in the 2023 season and before that, and Schoen before that. And look, they just haven't stayed healthy. Austin Mack, when he's on the field, is productive, as is Dalton Schoen, but these guys aren't staying healthy. I like the signing of Tim White. He's stayed healthy the last number of years. He's consistent, always has at least 70 catches, 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns. And the familiarity with Tommy Condell playing a big factor with Tim White, I think is a big reason why Austin Mack went to Edmonton for the familiarity with Cody Fajardo as well. So I think this puts the Bombers in a good spot going into this legal tampering period to do what I think a lot of fans want them to do, and that's focus on the trenches. They've, signed Ontario Wilson, Nick Dembski, now Tim White, and you look at the rest of the roster, they bring back Willie Jefferson, but you'd love another player on the defensive line, looking at the offensive line as well. You bring back Stanley Bryant, he's getting up there in age, but the O-line was a question last year. So I think this is a good spot for the Bombers to be in as we head into free agency, where they can really attack the trenches and maybe get a little bit stronger there.
Yeah, we'll have more conversation on the blue and gold coming up with John Hodge from 3 Down Nation. But coming up next, Greg Linnelli, host of Lightning Radio Network, hosts their daily show as well. He'll be joining us now to get a look at the home team for tonight. But first, here's Huss.
During these cold winter days and you're looking for things to do, might I suggest you head down and see our friends at Uptown Alley at 1301 St. Matthews Avenue. While it's cold outside, things are heating up on the lanes at Uptown Alleys with tons of 5-pin lanes, 10-pin lanes, and an incredible state-of-the-art arcade, and so much more for both group parties, corporate events, or just getting together with your gang or the family to kill some time when it's a little bit tough to be outside. Uptown Alley has incredible food and beverage options as well, so it's a great place to spend an evening, spend a day, grab something to eat, and have a heck of a lot of fun. It is the perfect place for birthday parties for kids, teens, or adults, and their event staff will take care of your group or corporate event and make it so easy. All you do is decide what activities you want, what you're going to be eating, any add-ons, and their event staff will take care of everything else. You can find out more information on all of it at uptownalley.ca. Give them a call at 488-0000. And don't forget, 7 days a week, their bowl and play special after 9 p.m., $20.49 for 90 minutes of 5-pin bowling and a $10 arcade card. Well, it's cold outside. Heat things up on the lanes at Uptown Alley. Our friends at Rolly's Transfer are ready to help you make that move in 2026. If you will be moving, there's a lot of stress that goes on with it. Well, Rolly's, family-owned and operated for over 60 years, and the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba, has been lessening the stress for their clients now into their 7th decade. Check out their website at rollys.com. You can click on request an estimate, put in the promo code WST for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies. Then let them know when and where you're planning on moving and what needs to be moved. And the friendly staff at Rolly's will turn around quickly with a great quote and get you locked in for the white glove treatment that they've been famous for over 60 years. For all your moving needs, lean on Rolly's Transfer, the most trusted name in the game. Find out more today online at rollys.com. Do have to shout out our friends at St. Patel Dental Center. Of course, they've been serving generations of Winnipeggers and Manitobans in St. Patel for years. And now our pal Dr. Terry and his great staff have a beautiful new facility at 167 St. Anne's with state-of-the-art equipment and convenient free parking right behind the building. They do it all for clients from 6 months to 99 plus with a full array of dental services from cleanings and checkups to things like dental implants. Whatever your dental needs, they're there for you. And if it's been a little while since you've been to the dentist, better you do it proactively as opposed to when it just hurts too much and you got to get in there. For all your dental needs, head on over to St. Patel Dental Center. Tell them the boys at Winnipeg Sports Talk sent you. Find out more. Book online today for an appointment at stpateldental.ca. And hey, football season feels like it's not just around the corner, but the snow's going to melt. We'll be back at Princess Auto Stadium, cheersing each other with Canadian Club, the official Canadian whiskey and official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. But while you might be staying at home a little bit more these days, pop by your local Manitoba liquor marts and get Canada's iconic Canadian whiskey, the good stuff, since 1848 at your local Manitoba liquor marts. And when you're at your local beer store, make sure to keep your eyes out for remaining stock of the amazing limited edition Canadian Club Cranberry Ginger Ale, which was such a big hit over the holiday season. Available in 4-packs and 473 milliliter singles at Liquor Mart locations and your local beer stores as well.
There's Huss. He'll be back. He's in Costa Rica, and he'll be back, I think, next week in time for our night out for Jets Habs. But the Jets are in Tampa to take on the Lightning. Pleased to be joined by host of the Lightning Audio Network and Power Lunch, Greg Linnelli. Greg, thanks so much for taking the time to join me today. I think we got to compare our temperatures now, and
let's do it. First off, thanks for having me. This is great.
Great. Yeah, it's okay. In Celsius, -18 feels like -28, but I'll go to Fahrenheit for you. 0 feels like -18, and I saw that guys might be getting some snow there this weekend, so it's not actually that warm.
For sure. So right now, where I am 64, which, come on, that's a heat wave with everybody else, but it's supposed to get down to 33 tonight.
Yeah,
and
that's
then
cool.
You're right. For the game on Sunday, I mean, there could be some flurries. It was funny. We had Chris Johnston on the show today, and I asked him, I said, Chris, this is probably going to be your most difficult question that we ask. What do you think will be better condition-wise to play in? The ice at Raymond James Stadium or the ice in the Olympics?
Yeah.
Because there have been some problems. You know?
Yeah, he took a picture of that hole, and yeah, we're all counting down to the Olympics opening ceremonies next week, and big weekend in Tampa Bay. You got the outdoor game Sunday and Gasparilla Festival. For people who may not know, what is this Gasparilla? It's Pirate Festival?
Basically dress up as pirates. You act a little crazy for the weekend, and you probably don't remember it when you wake up on Monday. I have 3 kids, so I can't. I that's a whole different life where I am right now. But I think for the city, it is a big weekend for sure.
I don't know if we're gonna be seeing any Pirates at the game tonight on the Jets broadcast, but we are gonna see the Tampa Bay Lightning. I mean, what a heater they're on here. 6 straight at home, 8-1-1 in their last 10, 10-1-1 in January. What's been the story for the Lightning this season?
Yeah, Andrew, it's really been fascinating. I mean, I think when you take a look at the beginning of the year, I think most people thought the Lightning were a pretty good team, but are they going to be at this level? Probably not. And I think the biggest reason has been the depth that they've been able to find out this year. They've had a lot of players come in, particularly with all the injuries they've had to key players. I mean, Victor Hedman, Ryan McDonough, just those 2 guys alone. I mean, those are 2 of your best defensemen. They've been able to complement them with guys they've brought up from the minor leagues, Crozier, Carlisle, Lilleberg, DeStew, and they haven't missed a beat. They've been defending really well, and it's allowed them an opportunity to be in every game. And then, when you factor in the goaltending, which we know has always been elite with Andrei Vasilevsky, it's allowed them to win the majority of their games. So nobody anticipated the depth on the back end, particularly with the injuries. And really, that's been a big reason why they've been, in first place up to this point.
Greg, you look at the Lightning roster, and Darren Radish emerged as the top pair right D. I mean, where did he come from, and how has he elevated his game this year with Victor Hedman out?
It's a good question, Mike. And I think when you take a look collectively at the back end, a lot of these guys have elevated their play. DeStew comes in and a veteran player of a lot of minor league games. I mean, this is a guy that is 27, 28 years old, couldn't find a home anywhere. The Lightning take a flyer on him. He's been productive everywhere he's been, comes in and he plays really well. Darren Radish is in a contract year, but at the beginning of the year, he found himself on the outside looking in, and this is a guy who's going to be closing in on 20 goals a season. So there are a couple of guys who have really stood out on that back end, but it's been a collective that have really risen to the challenge. Lilleberg is a guy who's been out, but when he has played, physical thumper on the back end. So, you're right to point out who you did, but I think there have also been 3 or 4 guys who've just, I think, surprised everybody with their play.
Yeah, they're getting a big boost tonight. Ryan McDonough back in lineup. How huge is that for them?
I mean, it's nice, but the funny thing is, I mean, he can slowly get back into this lineup. I mean, when he comes in, he's going to play with Chernak. That's kind of been the shutdown pair. But we've also seen Radish and Moser be the shutdown D pair. Whether that stays, see the conversation, Mike, with the Lightning, it's not necessarily is McDonough or Hedman going to come back into the lineup and play. They will, of course. It's going to be who sits and who stays with who on the defense pairing. JJ Moser has turned into be, I mean, this is an elite defenseman right now. If you take a look at the plus minus, the tough matchups he's gone against, he's been incredible. So McDonough, of course, is going to provide a lot of stability. The players have talked about him helping off the ice as well since he's been injured, talking to the younger defensemen, positioning, where to go, things like that. So when he comes back, that's going to be clearly a big boost. But I think the question everybody has here in Tampa, who's going to be in your top six?
And yes, top six has been the question. Braden point out, how have they managed with him out of lineup, and when is he expected back? You know, everyone who's following Team Canada kind of wondering whether they're going to have to replace him or not.
Yeah, you keep hearing rumblings that first it looked a lot worse than what it was. So I think they dodged a huge bullet there. I think ideally they'd like to get him in a game before he goes to the Olympics. But look, that's going to be a Julien Brisebois and John Cooper decision. You know, jokingly, we were talking about the ice in Italy, and, you know, Point's got a lower body injury. So my sense is he goes, but we'll see, you know, how effective and how much he plays. I mean, I think for his sake, he wants to be as close to 100% as possible. How have they been able to, you know, stay above water, so to speak, with him out? Dominic James comes in out of nowhere during training camp. This was a former Chicago Blackhawks draft pick, meshed well with some of the top players on the Lightning's roster. Their fourth line has been incredible. Pontus Holmberg has really come in and solidified it, along with Gergensons and Yanni Gourde. And then, I mean, let's face it, look at what Nikita Kucherov is doing. I mean, we talk about Matthews, McDavid, and you talk about some of these really elite players. I don't know, Mike, how you feel about Kucherov, but I make the analogy, this guy could fall out of bed and just collect 2 points. I mean, he's just a magician in a lot of different ways. He's been incredible, and that has really allowed the Lightning to offset that loss for Braden Point.
It's funny, Kucherov, very quiet, 80 points in 47 games for
Isn't
third
it quiet?
in the NHL. I feel like it is because I hear about McDavid all the time, McKinnon, Celebrini, you know, Mikko Rantanen, Kaprizov, and those are guys in the top 10. But Kucherov, 80, even 47. I mean, it helps when you have a guy like that. And the deadline's coming up. Do we expect GM Julien Brisebois to be active? He usually is. He
usually is, right?
Yeah,
he usually is. So based off of the history and the track record, I think he's going to do something. If you're going to pin me down and say, what do I think he will do? They've been struggling in the faceoff circle. It's probably the one area where I'm not sure internally it's going to get much better. It could, but if you get somebody though to address the faceoffs, they're going to have to be able to play, because you'd be taking somebody out of that lineup who's a really good forward. You're not messing with the fourth line, who I just mentioned to you. You know, you're not going to sit in Nick Paul, and of course, you're not going to touch the top six. So if you're going to bring in somebody, I think, to help with the faceoffs, it's either got to happen internally, or you're bringing somebody in who also can play 8 to 10 minutes. We'll see. Like, can't be a Luke Glendening, who they had last year. I think this team's too deep now, where it really needs somebody to factor in. If we go a step further, though, Mike, I feel like, you know, I'm a swing for the fences kind of guy, you know, win now. I would go ahead and try and find a top six, you know, assuming it can work, because I don't think you can have enough scoring in the playoffs. And would the Lightning have to give up somebody on their roster potentially? Yeah, probably. And look, the math has to work. We all understand that. But I don't know. I think Julien has shown over the years he's willing to swing for the fences, and if he can improve the team, he will. So that would be my take. And I definitely think they do something for sure.
Yeah, curious to see if they can get back to the Cup final. And before we go, it is the stadium. How much hype for the Stadium Series game there on Sunday at Raymond James with the pirate theme?
Yeah, it's good. It's an event. It's almost more than the game, Mike. When you think about it, it's hockey outdoors here in Tampa. It's just that doesn't sound right, but they're going to pull it off. I mean, the weather is going to turn in to something that's going to really be beneficial to everybody on the ice. And I think the crowd is just chomping at the bit to kind of showcase hockey here in Tampa one more time. And I think all eyes will be down here watching it. And hopefully it's a good game. And, Lightning win 3-2 and everybody has fun.
Perfect. Well, I'm going to be tuned in. I saw this pirate thing. I'm like, well, I got to watch this.
You're not going to dress as a pirate, are you?
No. I'll be. I think I'll be running around with I got kids too, with all the kids' activities. So I'm excited for it though. Thanks a lot for coming on, and a lot of comments in the chat about your ring that you have.
They like it. The Lightning. They give out the rings. It's a legit ring. And it's the only time I can wear it, because I'm not going to go outside. If I went out with the Pirates, they would take my jewelry. So I can't do it. I can't do it.
There you go. Greg, he's the host of Lightning Audio Network and Power Lunch with Dave Mishkin. Just celebrated 2,000 games calling Lightning hockey. Awesome stuff there. So really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. There he is, Greg Linnelli. Follow him on X at Greg Linnelli, covering the Tampa Bay Lightning. We'll be back with John Hodge with some more Blue Bomber talk, but first, here's Huss.
Don't forget, gang, right now is a great time to jump online or pop by Red River Co-op or London Drugs and grab your tickets for this St. Boniface Hospital Mega Million Choices Lottery. Of course, you can get them in person or order online at stbmegamillionchoices.ca, and you'll be in for everything. First deadline for the winter bonus is January 29th. The second deadline for the ultimate bonus is February the 20th. And of course, in addition to all the incredible early bird prizes with more than $500,000 in prize draws and winners, including the biggest ever bonus and the all-new World Cup experience prize package worth over $10,000 in Vancouver, you'll be in for one of the 6 grand prize options. 5 $1.5 million dream home packages in Winnipeg and Vancouver Island, or $1.25 million cash tax-free. How does that sound? It's all in support of the incredible work of the St. Boniface Hospital, both equipment and research, and makes such a big difference in our community. So pop by, get your tickets right now. Count yourself in. The earlier, the better, to be in for all the early draws and the biggest ever bonus. And maybe you can be Manitoba's next millionaire while supporting the St. Boniface Hospital. Again, online, get your tickets, stbmegamillionchoices.ca. And you can also order toll-free at 1-855-256-7203. Do want to thank our friends at Princess Auto for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Of course, Princess Auto is synonymous with Winnipeg, headquartered in the Peg, founded right here, and now serving Canadians coast to coast. And with 3 Manitoba locations, 2 in the city and 1 out in Brandon, where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. So pop by and see him on Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, or out in Brandon. And as always, you can shop online 24/7, 365 over at princessauto.com. I know it's cold. I know we're in the middle of winter, but I do know some folks that are loving every minute of it. And that, of course, is our pals over at Chud's Power Sports in Gimli, Manitoba's power sports superstore for over 80 years, family owned, with the best staff in the business that have been there with decades. Now, they have it all at Chud's Power Sports. Of course, snowmobiles, golf courts, pontoons, farming equipment. But right now, it's all about the sleds and the trails. Snow day deals on right now. from Polaris, up to $3,000 off select snowmobiles, and up to $4,000 off Polaris select off-road vehicles as well, including financing as low as 0% APR. Check out their great new website at chudspowersports.com, which will tell you all about everything that they've got going on, from snowmobiles to timber sled snow bikes, or maybe you're already starting to think about spring and summer with RVs, or heck, we got ice fishing season coming up too with ice shacks. They have it all at Chud's Power Sports. And as I mentioned, with the best staff that'll help you get exactly what you need at amazing deals as well. While you're on the website, top right corner, you'll see the link for e-commerce store. That will take you to truenorthparts.ca, their sister site, with the best in parts for whatever you need. And of course, amazing deals on clearance gear and accessories. And it's all waiting for you up in Gimli at the corner of Highway 8 and 231. Chud's Power Sports, Manitoba's leader for 80 years. See him in Gimli or shop online today at chudspowersports.com. And with the deep freeze here, it is maybe overdue for you to call up Donnie and the gang at Manitoba Battery to help you out, to make sure your car is getting from point A to point B. There's nobody that does it better than Manitoba Battery when it comes to customer service and price on batteries for literally everything. Now, we'll wait for the toys for the summer, because right now it's about making it through this Manitoba winter. And of course, if you do need a battery, or you're wondering whether it's going to make it through, you can pop by either of the locations on Logan Avenue or Dovercourt Drive for a free battery testing. And if you need a new one, you'll get one for the best price in town, shopping local and beating the pants off the big box stores with price and customer service as well. Manitoba Battery will also deliver batteries anywhere inside the perimeter. If you need it, pop by and see them in store today, or shop online and get your boost from Donnie and the gang at Manitoba Battery online at manitobabattery.com.
Wrong one. There's us. I got it wrong, but my buttons aren't working, John. There's us. He'll be back. He'll be back. What the heck? Oh, I don't have a camera. He'll be back next week. Here, we'll do this. We'll be back next week.
There we go.
There you go. I'm pleased to be joined, John Hodge and Connor, for some great Bomber discussion. John, we got the announcement last night. Tim White won your deal with the Bombers. Seemed like a great fit from the moment he was cut by the Ticats.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy who's a top receiver in the league. He has a reputation for dropping too many passes, which I do think is warranted. That being said, I mean, he's a 3-time All-CFL selection, 4-time All-East Division selection, 4-time 1,000-yard receiver, and arguably the best guy at the position available. Regardless of it was, he obviously got the early release from the Tiger Cats, but with Keyshawn Johnson going back to Saskatchewan, right, Keon Hatcher not getting free from BC, he was the number one guy available. And like the Blue Bombers were in a position clearly last year where the receiving core wasn't good enough, right? Dalton Schoen got hurt. Dylan Mitchell did not pan out. Carrick Wheatfall, Jarrah Stearns, serviceable, but didn't take that next step, right? And so I think with Pokey Wilson being back fully from the NFL, he came back partway through last year, but it's always tough to make that adjustment midseason. With Nick Dembski back, obviously, and healthy, he wasn't healthy for the playoffs, didn't play the East Semi due to the hamstring injury. And with Tim White, you've got a really good start here for the receiving core. I don't think the Bombers are done. I think they're going to look to address that receiver position more in free agency. But for right now, I think already this receiving core is better for 2026 than it was for 2025.
John, how much do you think the familiarity with Tommy Condell played into this decision? Obviously, Condell, offensive coordinator for Hamilton, in Tim White's, two very productive years for the Ticats, and now the OC for the Bombers. How much do you think that impacted this?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, when Mike O'Shea was asked, what did Tommy Condell's history with Zach Collaros have to do with this hiring? He claimed the answer was literally nothing, and that it was totally his hire, and Zach had no say. So maybe the same thing was true here, but I mean, Tim White's going to talk to the media here in about an hour over video conference, so I'm excited to hear his take and see if there was a connection. But regardless, I do think it's noteworthy, right, that Zach Klaris has had previous success with Tommy Condell. Tim White has had previous success with Tommy Condell. A guy who is more of a pass-first coordinator. We talked to him at length about that following his hiring in December. And Condell basically said, well, I'm prepared to do whatever we have to do to win. Obviously, the Bombers just invested a ton of money in Brady Oliveira, who's, for all intents and purposes, I think the face of the franchise. They're going to run the ball, but they ran the ball well in 2025, couldn't throw it well enough. So if Condell can add some fuel to that fire on the aerial side of things, I think that's positive. And I don't think the familiarity with Tim White could possibly be a bad thing. I mean, Tim White was, in 2021 breaking into the league, a guy who was like a track star in college, like wasn't like a career, huge football guy, kind of an interesting history. Came to the CFL at 26, a little later than most. He's already 31. But, I think he could be that number one receiver that they really need, right? I think Pokey, I think Dembski are really good 2-3 guys. But they needed that number one target that they haven't had since Kenny Lawler left. And Tim White might be able to fill that role.
One guy we haven't mentioned who's been the Bombers receiver group the last couple of years, Dalton Schoen, injured last year, battled injury. Where does that leave him and the rest of the Bombers receivers, and how does their group look now alongside Wilson and Dembski?
Well, it's thin outside of those guys, to be perfectly frank. I mean, Wheatfall is a pending free agent. Stearns is a pending free agent. I don't think it's ruled out that either of those guys could be back, but I mean, I think we can take a look at the Tim White signing as a signal that certainly they won't both be back. There's not room for both those guys to start. The Bombers start 2 receivers, right, who are Canadian. At times last year, they started 3. So, if they've already have 2 relatively high-paid American receivers in White and in Wilson, I don't think there's another room for one of those other Americans to be back, unless they're willing to come back for really cheap. I do think that Wheatfall and Stearns are good players. I think they're going to catch on somewhere else. But, Jareth Stearns is a guy who was an absolute monster at Western Kentucky. He was the quarterback for Bailey Zappi when Bailey Zappi, future NFL, I don't want to say standout, but certainly notorious NFL quarterback Bailey Zappi was lighting it up at the collegiate level. And, looked good with the Riders, but didn't really take that step with the Bombers, right? He was kind of a career 500-yard guy. I think the Bombers were hoping he would be a 1,000-yarder. He wasn't, right? So, the receiver market isn't super deep. I mean, with the cap going up late last year and then early this year, a lot of teams had a lot of money this offseason, and I think that's why we've seen so many marquee guys sign back. It's not like a few years ago where you had guys like Kenny Lawler going to the window. There's no receivers that caliber or close to going this time around. So as for Dalton Schoen, I mean, I don't think he's going to get signed, at least not immediately, because he's still injured, right? He tried to play as recently as September on a torn ACL, had to undergo surgery. And if you're a pending free agent and you're not healthy, there's no reason to sign you, because if ever you need a second surgery, you have a setback, something like that, then you're 6-gamed for the entire season and the team's got to pay you. So I don't think we've necessarily seen the last of Dalton Schoen in the CFL. I'm not even saying we've seen the last of him with the Blue Bombers, but right now I don't think it makes sense for a CFL team to sign Dalton Schoen. I think Chris Streveler is in the same boat. I think both guys are wait-and-see players for not just the Bombers, but every other team. And when they're healthy, we might see them back, but I don't think we're going to see them back before then.
John, I think a big reason why fans are so excited for Tim White here for the Blue Bombers, not only because he's a great football player, but a position of need, the wide receiver, the weapons out wide. What are maybe some other positions of need that you think the Bombers will be attacking once we get into free agency in a couple of weeks here?
It's a good question. I'll throw 2 at you. One is corner. I think when you look at the halfbacks, Dietrich Nichols, Evan Holm, they're 2 of the best in the CFL. They're the best halfback pairing in the CFL. I think Retta Cramdy's solid, but I think this team got exposed at times on the corners last year. Terrell Bond, solid guy, but again, hurt, right? Tore his ACL. I'm not saying he's not going to be back, but I don't think he's going to get signed again right away, because just like Schoen, just like Streveler, he's not going to be healthy for February, and I think it's doubtful if he's going to be ready for the start of the season. So I think that's a position, right? This team brought Demerio Houston back mid-year, despite some of kind of the off-field issues that had happened since his departure, or allegedly happened since his departure. And I was surprised by that. I thought it spoke to the desperation on field for this team, that they were going to bring somebody back who had those off-field allegations. So I think corner is a spot. I do think there is some good corner depth out there on the market. I wouldn't expect this team to go out and spend big money on 2 corners. I think you got to find one in the CFL, play them at field side. We know Jamal Parker's not back. He's already been released. But I think if you can sign someone to fill that boundary spot and then find a rookie to play that field side spot, maybe it's Trey Vavel too at that field side spot. You never know. But I think they're gonna sign a corner. And then I also think defensive line, right? I mean, Devin Adams was not retained. Jamal Woods is still a pending free agent. We know that one of those spots is going to be Canadian. Tanner Schmeckel signed an extension. Colin Cornelison is back, and obviously the starter should be Cameron Lawson there taking over from Jake Thomas. But that spot beside him is empty. So it wouldn't surprise me if the Bombers made a push for whether it's Mike Rose, who's a pending free agent, whether it's Jake Serezna, who's a pending free agent. There are some good defensive tackles available, and I think that could be a spot the Bombers look to make a play.
The Bombers have made a bunch of signings so far, bringing back players like Stanley Bryant, Willie Jefferson, Kyrie Wilson. How would you grade the Bombers' offseason? And you think they're ready to take a step forward after, limping, I don't want to say limping into the playoffs, but getting that last playoff spot last year?
I think it's been good. I think you'd like to see the team get younger, and right now they're not doing that. It might happen in the next little bit. Tim White, again, he turns 32 in July. So, I know this team has had a lot of criticism for being too old or maybe, putting off a rebuild or a youth movement. I don't think rebuilding in the CFL is really a thing. But that would be my only knock is I'd like to see some younger additions. That being said, I mean, this team was 10-8 last year, despite some brutal injuries, right? You don't have Dalton Schoen most of the year. You don't have Nick Dembski in the playoffs, right? Defensively, you had Terrell Bonds go down with the ACL. I think this team doesn't need an overhaul. This team needs tweaks. And I will say, full disclosure, I was really bullish on the team's free agent additions last season. I thought Dylan Mitchell was a nice crafty signing. I thought a guy like Jarrett Stearns, good value pickup. Jonathan Jones in the linebacking core, I thought could be really good. And obviously, the vast majority of the guys the Bombers picked up last year did nothing, right? And when you go back and you look at some of those names, they signed Reggie White Jr. He didn't make it out of camp. Peyton Logan was a complete bust. Again, he got hurt in camp, more bad luck with the injury bug. But I do think that this team, the core is still good. Stanley Bryant, he's turning 40, but PFF had him as the 6th best offensive tackle in the league in 2025. I get moving on from older guys who aren't playing well, but if you're the 6th best tackle in a 9-team league, why aren't you bringing Stan back, especially if he's not necessarily commanding, the $230,000 like Jamarcus Hardrick is, or the $220,000 that Quentin Barrow, I just reported, got to return to the Hamilton Tiger Cats for their right tackle position. So I think it's been a good offseason. I do think that some of these guys, is this Willie J's last year? It's possible. I think it's probably going to be Stanley's last year. I do think that you need to turn the page at a certain point. But, Willie batted 16 passes down last year, right? The sacks were down, but this is also a defense that doesn't particularly care about getting to the passer. Their goal is making the windows really small on the back end. And the defense got ripped to shreds in the East Semi. I think you have to acknowledge that. It was a terrible performance from the defense, but the regular season performance was pretty darn good across the board. They ranked number 1 in a lot of key categories. So I don't think you could be too critical of the regular season plays. So I would give the offseason for the Bombers so far maybe a B, right? I think getting a little younger would be better, but I have a hard time arguing against bringing a guy back like Patty Neufeld, where there are very few solid Canadian offensive linemen available. And Patty, again, is still playing well. One of the top-rated guards in the league, according to PFF.
John, I'm curious for your thoughts. You talk about Stanley Bryant and Willie Jefferson, this maybe being their last year. Zach Collaros, he obviously extended the 1 year, and this is the 1 year extension that he's going into this season. Do you think this could be Zach's last year? And in turn, what is there anything new on Taylor Elgersma as people are kind of projecting him as a long-term quarterback option for the Bombers?
Yeah, there's nothing new on Taylor Elgersma. There was kind of a splash a couple weeks ago where he got drafted by a UFL team. Taylor Elgersma has not signed a UFL contract, so the Burlingame Stallions own his UFL rights if he chooses to play in the UFL. But as of right now, he is not committed to playing in the UFL or the CFL. Just the Stallions have his rights exclusively, the same way that the Blue Bombers exclusively have Elgersma's rights for the Canadian Football League. So Elgersma has been in a holding pattern. He just recently spoke to our Justin Dunk at Laurier's new head coach unveiling and reiterated, I don't view the Bombers as a backup plan. I'd be super excited to go to them, but I don't want to sign a CFL contract until I'm sure that the NFL is done. And Elgersma has had a number of NFL workouts as of late. In just the last 6 weeks, I think he's had 3. And especially with NFL GMs changing, head coaches changing, right? There's always the chance that one of these guys who gets hired goes, okay, the club I was with before didn't have room for Taylor, but I really liked him when I saw him at, whether it's the Buffalo Pro Day, whether it's, whatever, right? Like when regimes change, guys have different influence in different buildings. So I think that's what they're waiting on, because Elgersma's not like most quarterbacks, right? Most quarterbacks, when they come to the CFL, have never played 3-down football. Everything is brand new. And yeah, there's a big jump from U Sports to the CFL, but Taylor's played 3-down football almost his entire life, at least since he started playing in high school. So he's got, close to a decade of experience in 3-down football. He knows the game. It's not going to be a culture shock when he signs a CFL contract, if that happens later this year or 2 years from now or 5 years from now. As for Zach, I think that's a good question. And honestly, one of the knocks, Connor, I have on the Bombers is I thought they should have tried to renegotiate with Zach. Zach is set to make $600,000 this season. And I appreciate that having a rookie offensive coordinator wasn't optimal last year. The receiving core is not good enough last year. But he has struggled the last 2 seasons. I believe the last 2 seasons he's got essentially even touchdown interception ratio. I think 33 touchdowns and 32 interceptions the last 2 years. Whereas before that, he was consistent 2-to-1. He was throwing 35 touchdowns a season, winning MOPs. So in a league where, Cody Fajardo is making in the 400s, in a league where, Nathan Rourke as the MOP, who's Canadian and younger and more mobile, is making $675. I don't really understand why Zach is making $600 at this point of his career. I'm not saying cut him. I'm not saying move on from him. I'm not saying he's washed. I'm just saying, can you get him down to $475 and take that extra money and give him another target, right? Or use it to reinforce the offensive line, bring in an all-star tackle, right? Something like that. So I'm excited to see how Zach plays, right? I don't think that the situation he's been in has been the greatest the last 2 years, but now he's got Tommy Condell, who he loves and adores. He's got some fresh weapons in the receiving core. I think the offensive line, especially with Gabe Wallace going into his second year, could be better. I think it's reasonable for the Bombers to expect Zach to look better in 26 than he did in 25 and 2024. So I'm curious to see how he plays, because if he wants to continue his career, he's got to perform this year, right? If he's done after this year and that's his choice, great. But if he wants to play at 38 and play in 2027, he's got to have a good season, I think, this year, or else you make a move, right? Even regardless of whether Taylor Elgersma is up here.
Well, it'll be interesting to follow the CFL offseason. The Bombers, the legal tampering begins on Sunday. John, thanks so much for coming on and enjoying all the great work you guys are doing at 3Down Nation.
Thanks for having me, guys. Anytime.
Appreciate it. There he is, John Hodge. Follow him on X, John D. Hodge, 3Down Nation. About to bring in Brandon Rewucki of Skates and Plates for the Jets discussion. But Connor, I kind of teased this at the beginning of the show, and we didn't really get into it. There's an article in Finnish publication, Ilta Sanomat, from writer Teemu Suvanen about Manitoba Moose defenseman Ville Heinola. Ville spilled all. Said, realized in training camp that the Winnipeg Jets no longer see him as part of their plans. The former first-round pick felt roster spots were decided before camp, despite playing well, and he didn't want to be a press box defenseman. He'd rather just play in the AHL than sit, because he spent most of last year watching games while rehabbing an injury. He only played 18 games last year in the NHL. This year, in his 7th AHL season, He did get put on waivers on the last possible day, hoping to get claimed, but it was tough. Everyone was setting their rosters, so no one claimed him. But now he said he's frustrated with the lack of opportunity. It's been mentally the toughest one of his career. And now this was using Google Translate, Connor. So that could be wrong. But judging, but I don't think I didn't think any of this was really a surprise. But what did you think of Ville Heinola telling all in the Finnish media?
Yeah, not surprising, Remis, for sure. I mean, Ville Heinola, we've talked about him for years and years and years, not getting the opportunity, and at times not earning the opportunity. But when you get to this article and you read some of it, some of the quotes, I feel like I'm stuck here. Early on in the article, he brings up that, including me, there were 9 defenders on one-way contracts. That was a big storyline we talked about during training camp. It was almost like, all right, there's supposedly a battle, but not really. I mean, we all know that, we all knew that Ville Heinola was going to be the one that went down. And then, it mentions how he'd rather play in the AHL than sit in the press box. But the kind of player that is at the point in his career where, he can feel kind of that NHL, the opportunities aren't coming for him in this organization. So why not voice your frustration, try and get to a different organization where you can get some of those opportunities. And this is something that we've talked about with the Winnipeg Jets away from Ville Heinola, with a lot of their prospects, the when they get their opportunities, if they get their opportunities, all of these things. And I think Ville Heinola is kind of the poster boy for that, unfortunately to him. And I was not shocked reading this article and some of the quotes that he feels like he's stuck here. And he felt like he was put in a bad spot last year when there were 9 defenders on one-way contracts, and it was pretty clear that he was the odd one out.
Well, let's bring in Brandon Rewucki for more discussion. Brandon, I sent you the article about Ville Heinola. I mean, the comment here from someone in the chat is DX Raptor, what's his trade value if he has any? And I think he's a guy now, he's his 7th year in the AHL. This is kind of what it is, where you get drafted to an organization and you're kind of stuck with them, even if it's not working out.
Yeah, no, thankfully I had my Finnish newspaper subscription already in the mail there, so I didn't have to pay for anything, so that was nice. But I mean, I feel bad for him. I mean, that was the first thing. You can obviously tell he's frustrated, and rightfully so, because he's wanted to be an NHL regular since he was picked in the first round by the Jets. And through a combination of injuries, mismanagement, bad timing, bad luck, like he hasn't had the ability to really showcase over an extended period of time what he's able to do at the NHL level. So like I totally get where he's coming from here. Really his one big chance though was, I guess it would have been last training camp, where the one previous to this one, where he was, I mean, he looked like a bona fide NHLer, and it was set in stone that he's going to make the roster. He's going to have a chance to become an everyday player. He's going to get 15 minutes a night, maybe some PP2 time. And then just the brutal injury luck, where he's out for a significant period of time, and he basically could just never get back to full speed that year. That was his chance, and it sucks, but that's kind of how pro sports goes. It is unfair. It is a bit of a lawless jungle at times, and teams ultimately have to do what's best for them to some degree. And it just sucks that was his big moment, and it looked like he was ready to grab it. And then just a fluke play happens, and he's not able to potentially show what he had given the Jets a glimpse of in his first year as an 18-year-old, when he almost made the team full-time. So I feel bad for him. And, kind of like Connor said as well, some of it is on him as well in terms of his level of play at both the NHL and AHL level hasn't basically been him banging the door down, no doubt about it. I have to be in the lineup. But it's also more than fair to say the Jets did not handle his development very well. Obviously, a pandemic threw a wrench into that, but this is not the ideal playing path for a guy that you invested a pretty high pick in. And I think if they had a do-over on how they handled certain parts of his development, they would certainly like to do that. Ultimately, it sadly just looks like really a waste of a first-round pick and a waste of a guy that showed that he might have potential, perhaps, to be a top 4 guy for you. And it never worked out that way for him.
And Brandon, on the topic of kind of drafting and developing, and since we're on the topic of Ville Heinola and how they managed his development path, does something like this and the whole Ville Heinola saga, let's call it, heighten your concern for the Jets' ability to draft and develop? Since 2017, it's just Sandberg and Perfetti that are on the roster, drafted and developed. Is this something that you're starting to take concern over, that the Jets, are in the position that they're in, and there aren't any prospects that are really banging the door down except for Salamonson now?
Yeah. I mean, it is fair to be concerned. It wasn't as strong as it was several years ago. I would say, what's the difference between those two times? The Jets made more picks, and they made more picks in the top half of the first round. You tend to draft better players when you're picking at the top of the first round. And so that there are some parts that are basically, this is the life of a team that's trying to contend, is that it's hard to do it year in, year out. Like, the system is designed for parity and for you to fall from the top back to the bottom, and the ever continuing cycle continues there. But yes, I think both player development as well as asset management has been a big issue for this team. Because even if we push the Heinola issue aside, I do feel like Heinola is more of a one-off. Like, I don't think the Jets ice out all of their prospects. I know a lot of people have issues with how they develop the youngsters, but yeah, I think Heinola is more of a one-off, where the Jets do deserve a good amount of blame for how that played out. They have done a pretty good job, though, compared to a lot of other teams in the NHL. Because yes, it's been a while, but you still can't ignore the fact that Adam Lowry was outside the first round. Connor Hrabchak obviously outside the first round. When they've had impact youngsters, they don't also hesitate to put them in at the NHL level. They just don't have those guys available right now. And then it becomes a chicken or the egg thing. Is it a player development issue, or is it a scouting issue to some degree, that they're not drafting the right guys and there's only so much development that can continue there? It's people have opinions on it, but it's really tough to say without having in-depth knowledge of what both the team and the player are doing on a day-to-day basis, because the players do obviously control a pretty massive amount of what they do as far as production goes. So there's concern. I have a bit more concern about how they've managed some of the players that have developed and that they did develop well. Johnny Kovacevic, obviously one. Declan Chisholm to a smaller degree, but like right there, you let go of 2 NHL defensemen for nothing. And Ville Heinola is going to be the third one at some point soon here. So I do think the Jets need to take a cold, hard look in the mirror and maybe just come to grips with where they are in the NHL stratosphere. You can say that nobody wants to come here and it's tough to sign, tough to trade. It's true, but do something about it. And one way to do something about it is maybe we have to lean a little bit younger. Maybe we have to, instead of, finding 2, 3, 35-plus-year-old veterans to fill out our roster, maybe it has to be 20-year-olds. We have to do things a little bit differently because we can't operate the same way a New York Rangers, a Boston Bruins, a Toronto Maple Leafs, name your ideal destination, can, because we just don't have that at our disposal. And so I kind of touched on a bunch of different topics there. They're not perfect. I also don't think they're as bad as a lot of people have made them out to be. But as far as the player development side of things goes, I would honestly put more thought into that they just haven't drafted well enough, because there's only so much you can do to develop a player if the player you drafted is flawed to some degree, and they just haven't hit on enough guys that they can then give a little bit of runway at the pro level.
Well, we'll see if Ville's a name who is on the move. Trade value probably much higher, closer to when he was drafted than it is now. His 7th year in the AHL. But the Jets, the big club, taking on the Lightning tonight. What are you expecting from the Jets after following up that embarrassing egg, as per Coach Scott Arneal, on Saturday against Detroit, to a 4-3 win over New Jersey? I'm
not expecting a ton of positivity. I mean, Tampa's played probably the best hockey in the NHL, right? I mean, they're a well-oiled machine, and that's speaking of player development. Like, there's your golden goose right there. I mean, obviously what's been their highest pick in the last 10 years? You know, I can't imagine there's been too many top 15 picks for Tampa Bay recently. So maybe a model the Jets could try to emulate a little bit. But I mean, I think I would say they're the best in the East. I know standings wise, they might not be there, but I think with the group that they have right now, there's just very few weaknesses. I mean, thankfully you catch them at a good time in the sense that Point won't be in there, but they're deep as hell, and they play the same way they did when they were going to back cups. You know, they're relentless, they're speedy, and they've got a ton of skill. And if the Jets head to the penalty box, it's gonna be another ugly egg. So yeah, it's the big concern for me. And you saw it a little bit in the New Jersey game, but the Devils just aren't. I mean, they might be the most disappointing team in the NHL outside of Winnipeg this year. But you're starting to see some bad habits creep into Winnipeg's game. You know, they're coasting on some back checks. They're losing focus inside the defensive zone. They're not always hard on pucks. This team can't afford to do that. Like, they need to nail all of the little things that they did last season to be a successful team. And obviously nowhere near that level this season. So yeah, it's going to be a tough one. I think we might get a pretty clear sense, if you know not already, that after this trip through some of the East, you know, the path for the rest of the season might be set. But yeah, they're going to need some special individual performances tonight to have a chance against a good Lightning team.
Brandon, moving away from tonight's game and kind of the short term with the Winnipeg Jets, the trade deadline is March 6th. Where's your Logan Stanley O-meter right now? As we heard from Darren Dreger that they haven't talked contract yet, but the Olympic break would obviously be a natural time to discuss contract. Do you think he ends up with the Winnipeg Jets past the March 6th deadline, maybe with a contract, or do you think this ends in a trade?
Yeah, my Jim Cramer meter is the stock is sell high. It is absolutely sell high. This is going to be interesting. I mean, I think this will be a good barometer of how the Jets see their organization. And again, it's funny because they can trade Logan Stanley, and it doesn't mean they've entered a rebuild or anything like that. Like, it's recognizing, and this is what Doug Armstrong of the Blues has done to great success numerous times as his tenure of St. Louis's GM. But recognizing his team's not going to do anything, even if they could miraculously sneak in. And so it's time to reload for next year. And that's what I think this is. It's a reload opportunity here where you can restock your cupboards a little bit and give yourself some wiggle room, whether it's adding prospects to the pool or accumulating assets to potentially use in a deal, either at the deadline or in the upcoming offseason. It's just with Morrissey and Sandberg locked in ahead of you here, it makes zero sense to pay anybody $5 million to play 13, 14 minutes a night on your third pair. It just doesn't make sense, especially when you let Brendan Dillon walk, just a couple of years ago, who I think we would all agree is a better player than Logan Stanley is right now. So, I mean, it's been insanely entertaining to watch. He's honestly been maybe the biggest bright spot on the team this year. And it's no fault of his own why you're moving him, but it's just, again, it's a recognition of realism and where you're at right now. We could potentially get a first-round pick for our third pair defenseman. I mean, that would be an amazing haul and could really put this team in an interesting position going into next year. So I still think the team, despite loving him more than most teams out there, is going to make the move. We'll see if it's going to be a first-round pick or if it's a second and a fourth or whatever it might be. But I do think the team's play is going to give management no choice but to come to the realization we're not a playoff team this year, and so it'll be sell time. The interesting one for me is going to be the guys with term. Does Dylan DeMello find a new home? Even Cole Perfetti, albeit an RFA upcoming this year, how real are the whispers and the smoke around him? It might not just be send our pending UFAs out the door and away we go. Like, there could potentially be some seismic changes, considering this is a big-time seller's market the Jets could find themselves in.
I was going to ask you about Cole Perfetti, Brandon. He's really struggled this season. The numbers are not what they were last year, and he's in a contract year too, an RFA after the season. How would you feel about the Jets dealing Cole Perfetti if the rumors are true? And what would his trade value even be right now?
Yeah, well, I mean, first off, he's playing a million times better right now than he did earlier on in the season. So, I mean, that's positive for Winnipeg long term and Winnipeg in the short term. So he's been a much more impactful player. I mean, him and Taves have kind of carried the mail in all reality the last couple of weeks for the Jets offensively here. So that's been great to see. As far as league-wide value, there's some, but I don't know if it's going to be enough to land a big fish or anything like that. Even the Shane Wright talk that's been circulating for some time, there's probably going to be some teams that could offer a better player than Cole Perfetti. So is Perfetti even enough to take a swing on the upside of a former 4th overall pick? I'm not necessarily sure that's in the equation for Winnipeg. I mean, I've said it before with Huss that I do have, I think, valid concerns about what his ceiling is at the NHL level. But it kind of comes down to right now, are you going to win a trade that involves Cole Perfetti before March 6th? I think it's really unlikely. So I'm not opposed to it. I just don't know if I see a fit out there. But specifically the Seattle deal, that's a gamble that I would make if I'm the Jets. Because realistically, you're talking about 2 former top picks that have struggled to produce for different reasons based off of their draft slot. That would be looking for a change of scenery. And if you're Winnipeg in that scenario, I mean, you're trading a winger for a center. That alone right there is a win-win. And I'm not even the biggest Shane Wright fan, but just as far as how desperate every team is in the NHL to build depth down the middle right now, you're not going to find the perfect guy because they're not available. So you have to take some level of risk here. And I would bet on that and maybe see if he could be, in the meantime, a guy that can learn from Jonathan Taves, gain some invaluable experience that way, and then expectations-wise, the 2C for the next couple of years behind Mark Scheifele, it's not a bad spot to be in where you're not thrusting everything upon him all at once there. So that's the one deal that I would probably think long and hard about. Outside of that, though, I don't know. I just don't know if there's a fit out there. And does it make the Jets a better team for the next couple of years if they trade him for a 30-year-old that might be a better player now? I don't know if they're in the position to do something like that. So I tend to think we don't see anything happen with him just yet, but would not be shocked to see a move like that take place at some point, either before the draft or before free agency.
Brandon, you talked about the guys with term being interesting going into this deadline. I want to ask about the 3 forwards that have just that one extra year of term in Nino Niederreiter, Vlad Nemeskov, and Morgan Barron. If you had to rank those 3, who do you think is the most likely to get traded at this year's trade deadline?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think out of the 3, Morgan Barron's the most valuable asset.
Agreed, yeah.
I don't know if I want to move him though. I still kind of want to see. I want to see what he can do with more responsibility here in Winnipeg. I mean, if the ask is right, anybody's up for grabs. But it's funny. The Jets spend so much time saying we've invested all this time developing Stanley, developing him, getting him ready. It's well, you do that with all your players, and to move on from Morgan Barron right when you're about to reap the benefits of all that, I don't know. It would have to take a pretty significant deal to move him out for me. I mean, I think Nino Niederreiter is the easiest guy to move in that teams will value him, and you'll get. So I think the Jets can get a 2nd-round pick for him. So you recoup what you gave up a couple years back. I do think he does get traded. So I think ultimately that's going to be the move there. Probably Vladdy, but I mean, what are you getting back? A 3rd or a 4th-round pick? So maybe you do something like that for a lottery ticket, but I don't really think it's going to move the needle all that much. So I mean, I think the Jets like Nino, but again, it's an opportunity to get a little bit younger, maybe a little bit quicker as well, and getting a 2nd-round pick. The fact that there's going to be a lot of teams in the mix, maybe you find a team that's in and around the bubble. as opposed to sending him to a Tampa or a Colorado. You send him to a Boston or a Buffalo for a second round pick that, could be a little bit closer to the top of the round than, pick 60 some odd in the second round there. So I think he has the most value despite not performing at a super high level production wise. And then Vlad would be kind of similar to when the Jets got him, like a guy that you bring in as a depth piece and see if he's a good fit with your team.
Brandon, moving on from the Jets as we wind this down, the trade deadline coming up, the Rangers holding out Artemi Panarin, well, until they trade him. That could be, until the Olympic break. That could be until the trade deadline. Some of us, started Panarin in a weekly transaction fantasy league, like myself, not happy about this. I want him to be traded right away. Who do you see as a fit, or where do you want to see him land after the trade deadline?
Before the year started, I actually thought that the Ottawa Senators would be a good spot for him. I thought the Senators would be a lot better than they are, and I thought they'd go all in and pick up the biggest name on the market. It'd be a hell of a gamble to do something like that right now with the spot that they're in. So I don't know if I necessarily see Ottawa pulling the trigger on that. LA would be the other one because they were in the running initially with Panarin, and it seems like he's got a pretty select few destinations that he would like to go to, because it sounds like if I'm going to move once, that's it. I'll sign an extension with whoever I'm traded to. But again, LA is kind of in a similar spot to Ottawa where, there's no guarantee that they can make the playoffs. And do you give up that amount of assets for a guy that, one, might not help you get over the line, and then two, could, even wanting to stay there, potentially be out the door as well? Could Utah maybe be a sleeper? Utah's pretty close to a playoff lock now at this point. They've got a pretty sizable lead on the wild card spot, that they're playing better. I think that's a team that wants to make a splash. And there's not a ton of options available for teams to do that. So Utah, to me, would be right in the mix for that. Outside of them, I just don't think Florida has the assets to get something like that done. Maybe Detroit. Not sure if I totally see the fit there. The only other one might be Carolina. I just don't know if his play style fits in with what the Hurricanes like to do. Like, can you have Ehlers and Panarin on a team that focuses so much on generating the cycle and forechecking and things like that? I'm not sure if it's a great fit. So I think I'd go Utah right now. And that's the team that can make a big splash. They've got a ton of picks and prospects, so they can afford to give up whatever New York's looking for there. But that'll be an intriguing one, because I think the teams that made a lot of sense before the year just might not fit stylistically anymore, because they're not in a good enough spot to necessitate grabbing a guy that's potentially just a rental for the biggest price available.
Yeah, that is the big name that we'll see where he lands. Would love to have a trade. Let's get one done before the Olympic break next Wednesday. Brandon, great talking with you, and hopefully we can connect again next week.
Sounds good. Have a good one, guys. We'll talk soon.
Perfect. There he is, Brandon Rewucki, Skates and Plates podcast, doing some great work over there. Love listening after Jets games. Well, we're going to be joined in a second by play-by-play voice of the Manitoba Moose, Daniel Fink. But first, here's us.
Every Winnipeg Jets game, the lines are presented by our friends at Clean Line Plumbing, Heating, and Electrical, your local leader for over 40 years for the best in plumbing services as well as heating and electrical. Your one-stop shop with over 40 years of experience, and of course, the official plumbing service of the Winnipeg Jets. Not only are they the leaders in residential and commercial services, but much like the Captain Adam Lowry, they have got your back covered 24/7, 365 with 24/7 emergency services. Mark the number down, 204-500-2001. When you need them, Clean Line is there. Your local leaders for plumbing, heating, and electrical. Check them out online at cleanline.ca. Great opportunity with all these games coming up. Lots of hockey as we push to the Olympic break, and the Olympics just around the corner, to get together with your gang at your local Boston Pizza for the big game. Enjoy ice-cold schooners, world-famous BP wings, gourmet pizzas, and more. And if it is a little too cold outside for you to make it out, you can always get the great taste of Boston Pizza by ordering online at bostonpizza.com. And as we count down to the Olympics, I know many of you are going to want to get geared up in red and white to support Team Canada at the Olympic Games. And you know where to do that. Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway, Winnipeg's ultimate sports superstore with the best in fan gear for both Team Canada merch as we get ready for Italy in the Olympic Games, as well as the Jets and the National Hockey League, Jays and Major League Baseball, all your favorite NFL teams, Raptors, NBA, Pro Soccer, and more. While you're there, check out their incredible hockey department, the best in town with amazing deals on sticks, skates, and equipment. And if you're planning a snowboard trip, Royal's been the leader in snowboards for 25 years. Check out the snowboard department today. It has been busy coming out of the holidays. Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. Make sure to follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Winnipeg for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. All right, just before we get to our next segment, let's give a big cheers to our friends at Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
There's us again back next Wednesday ahead of Jets Habs. Pleased to be joined right now, play-by-play voice of the Manitoba Moose, Daniel Fink. Finker, what's going on? Thanks for coming on. A big weekend for the Moose hosting the top team. Well, best record and through this many games in AHL history, Grand Rapids, but the Moose came out with a big win to wrap up that short two-gamer over the weekend.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I was talking to Bob Kaiser, who calls the games for Grand Rapids. I said, I don't even consider you guys in the division anymore. You look at these as out-of-division games. I mean, they're he was talking after the game, and Kays was very complimentary of how the Moose played in that 3-2 win. It was a great game, overall great weekend of hockey. And he said, yeah, well, despite the loss, the Grand Rapids Griffins are, I think it was 24 points ahead of the Moose in the standings. We're third in the Central Division and have 20 wins on the campaign. So this Grand Rapids team has been incredible this season, and we kind of got a taste of why and what has made them so effective over this past weekend. But I think the important thing for the Moose is they got that split. They got that win in regulation against the Griffins, which was Grand Rapids' first regulation road loss in their 18th game on the road this season. It was the first time the Griffins had lost in regulation when leading in the third period. So the Moose got that done against a very good team. And it concluded a stretch of 4 straight games playing against division leaders, the Laval Rocket, prior to that on the road. And the Moose won 3 of those 4 games. So that is huge for this Moose team. Great launching off point for the second half of the season as they kind of crossed over into games 37 and 38 against Grand Rapids there. So the question is, can they build on that and make good on these wins against teams out of their division, at the top of their division, and then start picking up those wins against a team like Rockford that has kind of been up and down throughout the season, but has given the Moose trouble at times.
And Dan, the big highlight from that game where the Moose beat the Griffins was Brad Lambert's goal with 30 seconds left. Great call on that goal, by the way. How's Brad Lambert looked as of late? You know, when he went down to the AHL, maybe it was a bit of a slower start for him, but his production as of late seems to be his points and goal totals keep climbing every time I check the Manitoba Moose stats page. So what are you seeing recently from Brad Lambert?
Yeah, I mean, for Brad, we were talking about this with the illegal curve guys on the weekend, and you know what? He's starting to get a little more pace in his game. We all know he can skate fast, but there's a difference between skating fast and playing with pace. And we've seen a lot of that from his game. And you know what? He's coming up clutch. I mean, here's a guy that even through his 2 AHL seasons with the Moosers, 2 full AHL seasons, had kind of 1 game-winning goal in each of those seasons and then 1 shootout winner on top of that. Well, he's got 2 game-winning goals in his past 3 games, add on a shootout winner. So he's got kind of that clutch going right now for the Moose too. So that is great to see. And for the Moose, I mean, obviously, as Brad Lambert can kind of wheel onto his game, makes the whole team better, right? So they've kind of settled onto a line. We'll see if that sticks through going into the weekend with Parker Ford and Phil DiGiuseppe, and they found some success, maybe not pile driving right through as we've kind of seen the Dewar, Shaw, Gustafson line do, but maybe starting to find some of that. And that's kind of been one of the things that's plagued the Moose throughout the season is they have that one line that they can rely on every time they come over the wall, but it's been kind of tricky to find the chemistry with some of the other groupings. So if that group can really start flying and moving up the ice and attacking consistently, you have a couple of guys that can really clear out some space for Brad to get a little more room with the puck. So obviously we've seen those point totals start to climb. He's up to 10 points now. We've seen some key goals from Lambert, and you love to see one crashing around the net. That was that winner there. So those are the different areas on the ice you want to see guys find success. So for Brad Lambert, of course, we want to see him building on that game, adding tools to his toolkit. He's got that skill. He's got that speed. Can he build on all those things? And that's what you want to see from him in this third AHL season.
One player that you saw a lot of this year, Elias Salomonsson, now with the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, how great is it for you to see a player like that who spent time with the Moose now having success paired with Dylan Sandberg on the big club?
Yeah, I mean, every time a guy goes up to the Winnipeg Jets, it's kind of like, great, hope we never see you again. And that's not a bad thing. We want them to play the rest of their time in the National Hockey League. That's obviously the goal. So it's great to see him getting this long run with the Jets. Obviously, unfortunate the way it comes about with injuries to other players. But when that opportunity arises, you hope the players coming up from the AHL level are ready to shoulder that load. So obviously, a lot of learning going on for Elias right now, as I'm sure he would tell you, is playing at the NHL level every night is considerably different than playing in the American Hockey League, even though it is arguably the second best league in the world. So it's great to see him have that opportunity. And of course, we saw him put so many building blocks together through last season when he was an AHL All-Star. And then this season, of course, where maybe got off to a little bit of slow start and then kind of really started to get moving. So it's great to see him have this opportunity. We'll see what the rest of the season holds for him.
Daniel, I think I've asked you a few times this exact question throughout the season, but people want to know about the prospects, the guys making the pro leap, Braden Yeager, Colby Barlow. We'll exclude Jacob Julien from the conversation. I know he's had some injuries and he's working his way back, but those guys in particular, Yeager and Barlow, first-round draft picks, how have they kind of adjusted to the pro game this season, and how's their season going as they learn the grind of playing in their first pro year?
Yeah, it's a big jump for these guys too, right? Especially when you look at some of these guys coming from junior. Of course, they were relied upon night in and night out to be the guy, or they have certain attributes in Colby Barlow's case where he was a physically developed player much earlier than some of his junior counterparts. Well, he doesn't have that advantage anymore in that now he's got to catch up to where some of these guys that are 30 years old are much more mature physically, of course. So I think that's part of the learning process. It's learning to play within that system and kind of playing within the structure of pro hockey, where you might be able to get away with doing things kind of at your own page or things like that in junior. It just doesn't really fly in the pro ranks sometimes. So it's finding those moments when you can go off script and sticking to the structure when you're playing the balance of your game. So I think for both of those players, there's a lot of learning going on this season. And that's the value of the American Hockey League. You play a pro schedule, yes, 10 games or 10 games, soon to be 12 less than the National Hockey League. But when players can get into that grind, get into that travel, play against players who are now not within their age group or within a couple years of, they're playing against guys that are 10 years older than them and have gone through that experience and know what it takes. People are fighting for their job every night. That's a big difference of playing in junior hockey. So it's a lot of learning through not just what happens on the ice, but off it as well. You have these guys that have been living at home, if you're talking about Jacob Julien, or with Billets, with the other two. They've got to learn how to be professionals and adults and deal with their own housing and their own meals and things like that. And as any of us who have left home can attest, that's a bit of a scrambly year. You're trying to figure your life out and play pro hockey on top of that. That's a lot. So it's important lessons that are going on for these guys. And I think they're adapting to it well. And it's just this process that goes a little different for every player. And one that it's a treat to watch these guys take their strides as we see them become more effective pros basically every single game.
Yeah, one guy who's been a pro for a couple of years now, former first-round pick, Ville Heinola. We spent some time talking about him earlier in the show, Dan. It seems like he's finding his game here, at this point of the season.
Yeah, and as I've said probably a couple of times in the last couple of weeks here, here's a guy who just hasn't played a lot of hockey over the past couple of seasons. I mean, you think about the injuries, things like that, it's been tough for him to get into games. So when all of a sudden now he can play 30 plus consecutive games, that's massive, especially for a guy who is still, he seems like he's been around forever, but he's still a reasonably young defenseman. So you get this guy an opportunity to really get some runway, to get some games under his belt, feel comfortable, and he's going to start making plays like he can. So it's been a good opportunity to see Ville really get that opportunity to kind of build on his game and just start to do some of the things that we have seen in the past that he can. And it took a little bit early on in the season, and now we're starting to see where he can make those small plays. He doesn't always blow you away with some amazing flash of skill, but when you watch some of the small things that he does to escape pressure, things like that, and start the breakout, it really is impressive what he can do at this AHL level. So he's just got to keep building that, keep pushing along, and good things will lay ahead for him.
Well, Dan, just before we let you go, what are you expecting this weekend? The Moose take on the Rockford Ice Hogs, who are, lower in the AHL standings, let's put it. 2:00 on Saturday, 2:00 on Sunday. Not Super Bowl Sunday quite yet, so there's no football for the first time in a long time on a Sunday this weekend. What can fans expect if they're down at Canada Life Center this weekend?
Well, our projected attendance for Sunday maybe reflects that there's no football that day.
There you go.
But you know what? It's exciting. I mean, the Moose are coming off playing 4 really strong games, probably maybe their 4 best consecutive games of the season against some great opponents. Well, now they've got the Rockford Ice Hogs, who they have had success against this season, but have also had it turned around on them and given up 7 goals to the Ice Hogs on a couple of occasions. So this is a team that if you aren't at your best, they will pick you apart. They have some very skilled players. Just got Nick Lardis back from the Chicago Blackhawks. We'll see if he stays with them through to the I'm just saying that, having checked the transactions today, so I don't know if anything's changed, but provided he's in the lineup, there's a very high skill rookie that can certainly produce. Brett Seeney, of course, has been a veteran in this league for a long time and definitely knows how to pick apart a defense. So it's a Rockford team that plays with a lot of skill, a lot of speed. They have a real tough fourth line as well. So there's always some fireworks involved with those guys. Fans will remember the tilt between Tyrell Bauer and Dylan Boucher earlier on this season. So it's a couple of games that the Moose are going to have to be ready to go, because if they aren't, they're going to get into trouble. It's going to be a battle, as it has been between these two teams all season long. But the Moose, again, looking to build off of those past 4 games that they played against Laval and Grand Rapids and keep that game steady. They want to keep that rolling and have an opportunity to try and create some more separation, because, I mean, you mentioned, Connor, that Rockford's behind them in the standings. Couple of wins this weekend for the Ice Hogs can get them right back on the Moose heels. So the Moose have some games in hand on some of these teams, but you can't make good on those if you don't win your games against your divisional opponents. So they're important games as we get into this second half of the season. So looking forward to a couple real good games at Saturday and Sunday, 2:00 puck drop at Canada Life Center for minor hockey weekend. So we have a whole ton of minor hockey teams in the building. Should be a lot of fun and a couple of great games as well.
Nicely done, Dan. You mentioned some good sales for the Moose. How about those social ticket sales? I know you mentioned that with Hustler. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, we're working through the social ticket sales right now. Still some available. So if anybody in WST Nation is interested, you can always send me a DM on Twitter and I can get you set up. Had actually a bunch of prizes come in today, so it looks like we got some pretty good stuff. Just got my hands on an espresso machine that somebody dropped off. We got some signed Jets jerseys that are looking pretty good. Signed Moose jerseys as well. So yeah, there's some pretty good prizes on the table right now. I would love to see folks out there certainly looking to have a great time. That's on February 20th is the social. So my goodness, I can't wait to have that over and done with, because it's trying to hawk tickets for both Moose and myself. That's just too many tickets right now. So yeah, looking forward to it, but certainly going to be happy once that one's passed on February 20th.
Perfect, Dan. Thanks a lot for coming on. Great talking with you as always.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Remember to get your tickets for this weekend's game, moosehockey.com/tickets. And if you're looking to maybe get a little extra bang for your buck, check out moosehockey.com/offers.
Perfect. There he is, Daniel Fink, voice of the Manitoba Moose. And yes, we'll have some tickets to give away. Stay tuned to tomorrow's show or social media for later today. But Connor, it's that time of the show. We got to get to the Chuds Power Sports Power Poll, where we're going to give our picks for the top 5 teams in the NHL. Connor, let's take it away here as I bring up the list. Oh, just 1 second. We do have coming in at number 5, the Dallas Stars. As I bring it up, 1 second. Number 5, Dallas Stars. Number 4, Carolina Hurricanes. Number 3, Buffalo Sabres. We do have number 2, tonight's opponent for the Winnipeg Jets, the Tampa Bay Lightning. And number 1, the Colorado Avalanche. Connor, what was the toughest decision here for you when putting together this power poll?
Well, yeah, Colorado's going to be number 1. Tampa Bay is going to be number 2. Those are the top 2 teams, Colorado in the West, Tampa in the East. Buffalo at number 3, though. I wonder, I'd have to go back and look. I doubt Huss has had Buffalo on any of his power polls so far this season. But since Buffalo beat the Jets 5-1 on December 1st, Buffalo is an NHL best 26-1. So, how could they not be at this point? They've gone 2 months being the best team in the National Hockey League. They absolutely need to be on this list. And they're beating impressive teams along the way. They're scoring a ton of goals. That was maybe the shock value to call the Buffalo Sabres a top 3 team in hockey. It just feels like a weird sentence to say. My whole lifetime, they have not been good. But that's where we are today. Since December 1st, they're the best team in the National Hockey League. So that'll be interesting to see if they can keep it up, because in years past they've been good and then fallen off, but I'm cheering for them. That fan base deserves it. Carolina and Dallas, they're regular season wagons. They're there every single year near the top of the conference and in each of those in the East and in the West. And maybe if Colorado wasn't having such an insane season, Dallas would get more respect. But for me, Buffalo, randomly, for the first time in a long time, one of the top 3 teams in the National Hockey League for me.
One team that's not on there, that's been on Hustler's Power Poll and is regarded as one of the top teams in the league, Minnesota Wild. They're second behind Colorado with a record 30-14-10. But you look, sorry, is that the right? Yeah, 30. They only have 19 regulation wins.
As many as the Jets do. And same amount as the Jets, 19 regulation
which is
wins.
Crazy. 7 of those in overtime. We saw them, take the Jets in overtime at Canada Life Center back in December, and a couple in the shootout as well. So Minnesota taking advantage of the 3-on-3 skill game with Kaprizov, with Boldy, and Quinn Hughes. We know they're a pretty good team, but I think saying, hey, they're kind of gaming the system here, Minnesota, who's 3rd in the league or tied with Tampa with 70 points.
Yeah. Please, NHL, go to a 3-2-1 point system. That would be much appreciated. Minnesota has the same amount of regulation wins as the Jets. The Jets have more regulation wins, Remis, than the Pacific Division leading Vegas Golden Knights. And the Golden Knights go to overtime every night. It's ridiculous. They have 13 loser points in OT and 18 wins in regulation. So somewhere in there, you can do the math on how many overtime wins they have. But the false parity around the league right now with the amount of 3-point games is just ridiculous. I don't like it. It gives way to, tie game in the 3rd. We can all just play for the tie here. And yeah, that's why Minnesota and Vegas off the power poll for this week. Buffalo wins ethically. They win in regulation. They're on the power poll this week.
So you're saying Vegas fraud team, 18
Vegas and Minnesota
wins.
So far frauds.
As many. Man, the Jets have more regulation wins than Vegas. And yes, 13 overtime losses for Vegas.
Crazy.
And it's funny, a team's San Jose, we're hearing rumors about them trying to make additions for the deadline. They only have 16 regulation wins. And it just shows you the Jets season, we're going to look back. I don't think there's going to be as bad. They're not as bad, definitely not as bad as their record. That losing streak sunk them. But their scoring has been a problem for them, for sure. But we're going to bring in right now from Coolbet, Pat Gregoire. Pat taking a break from, the lacrosse. He's here. Pat, what's going on? How are you feeling here with the Super Bowl coming up, big NHL slate? What's new with you?
Yeah, it's been busy at Coolbet HQ here in Canada. You mentioned it, no football this Sunday, but that doesn't matter because it is a full-fledged lead up to the big game next Sunday. So we're getting ready. I looking earlier today, let's see if the fellas have added any more. No, okay. Still, there's going to be more added, but already we are more than a week away, and there are 118 different markets that you can bet on for the Super Bowl. It is one of the best days of the year if you're just a casual, but if you are a sports bettor and a big football fan like myself, especially when one of your heated rivals are in this game, it makes it a little more sweeter that maybe I'll be able to profit off if they're to win.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Pat, I know you're a big Bills guy. Does this mean you're backing the Seahawks all the way?
1,000%. It's like no doubt about it. Although, as you guys know, a lot of Canadians are big Seahawks fans. So I do have some buddies on the West Coast that are big Seahawks fans. So I would rather hear it from them than hear it from Jake, to be quite honest. So I'll take the Seahawks in this one.
I think we can all agree, the Patriots with their fraud schedule, with easy path to the Super Bowl. You want to see a real team here. Is there anything for the Super Bowl that here, a week and a half away, that excites you when it comes to wagering? Like, is it the Bad Bunny prop, the Gatorade, or anything like that out there for you?
So I haven't done my research quite yet when it comes to a lot of these exotic markets. So I'm gonna have to dive into a little more of Bad Bunny. Don't get me wrong. I couldn't tell you. Like, you could play a bunch of Bad Bunny and absolute banger after banger after banger. I don't know what song is which, though. I apologize. So I am gonna have to do a little bit of research on that. But I'm looking forward to that halftime show. I think, again, another one that I always love, but again, going to have to do my research, the national anthem. I think right now it's 119 and a half seconds. I'll have to confirm on that. I'll have to take another look there. But again, I think who is actually doing
it's still early. Anthem? Yeah, I haven't looked either. I'm usually all over the anthem, all over
I know
all
you
that
are.
stuff. Yeah, I love the anthem. So
let's see.
It's still
it's still early. Who is it? Do we have it up here? Charlie Puth. Okay. That is interesting. I feel like he might want to really stretch it out and get a little creative with it. I don't know if you've seen him on TikTok and Instagram. Quite the creative genius when it comes to music. So I wouldn't be surprised if he puts a little bit of zest on it. We could see a over there.
Perfect. I noticed. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Fine. I was going to ask about some of these specials because some of these are just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, Cardi B to wear a Stephon Diggs jersey, minus 139, yes. Bay Area landmark shown first on the broadcast. Golden Gate Bridge, a heavy favorite, as it should be. Yeah. And then this one, I think I saw you guys tweet this out and added it just the other day. Bill Belichick to attend the game with Jordan Hudson, plus 200. This is why the Super Bowl can't beat it. Can't beat it betting on the Super Bowl.
It's the best, man. It's the absolute best. Yeah, we had to get the two. I think, Cardi B, minus 139. I feel like you've got really good value there, but it is the Super Bowl. Maybe she wears like a big jacket or something like that. Although it's going to be warmer climates in San Fran, won't be like super hot, but it could have a little bit of chill by kickoff. So that one's certainly intriguing. I mean, I always get a kick out of Jordan and Bill Belichick. I will say this, even looking at some, we're going to have even more of these specials pop up. One that is a little more, I guess you could say, game specific, but it is still kind of out there. It's under player specials. Any quarterback to have a reception. I feel like I've bet this the last 3 Super Bowls and we haven't had it. I feel like we're getting it one here. I could absolutely see McDaniels, drawing something up here and getting Drake May out in the flat, reverse cursing the Philly special to kind of get back in their winning ways in the Super Bowl. So that's 17-1. Why not? Worth a little bit of a sprinkle there. But yeah, I think next week gonna really hunker down dive into all these specials. I think we're going to do a WST winners when Huss gets back from Costa Rica, if he ever comes back, because if he wins this tournament, I mean, he might just stay down there and buy a place. But I'm excited for it. I'm looking forward to it. It's one of the best days to be on Coolbet, and I know you guys have been pumping it this week. If you have already used your WST deposit bonus, that's great. We love to see it. If you haven't yet, this is the week to absolutely do it. But if you have used it and you're looking to get a little extra down on the Super Bowl, use deposit code WST SB60. That's WST Super Bowl 60. And we'll deposit you. You will double your deposit up to $60. So a little bit of extra coin in your Coolbet purse to sprinkle down on the big game.
Yeah, you only have to bet that one time through, so
Yes.
very favorable bonus. Jake mentioned that. I did see someone in chat said they already took advantage of the $60. Pat, I was thinking about you yesterday. What's going on with the PGA Tour? We got Brooks Koepka coming back, Patrick Reed back. Are we gearing up for one of the more exciting seasons that we've had in the last couple of years?
I really think so. And let me get this on the record. I absolutely love Brooks Koepka. He's one of my favorite guys in golf. I always seem to bet him around major time. Haven't taken a look to see how he's doing right now in his first tournament. I will say this. Next week, I believe it's the Phoenix Open.
Yes.
The last time the Patriots won the Waste Management Open, they won the Super Bowl. Brooks Koepka won the Waste Management Open. So I think there might even be a combo card up there that we're going to cook together for those two to win. But it is crazy. Like I love Brooks. On the flip side, I absolutely hate Patrick Reed. Scumbag, worst guy on tour. But it's great to have him back. Like, it's good to have a villain. You need those guys who you love to cheer for and you hate to, you love cheering against. And I think Patrick Reed coming on here, and it's kind of interesting because all he has to do basically now is sit out for a full year, which I think gets him to about like August. He could still play in the majors that he's eligible for. And then come August, after it's a year of not playing in LIV, he's able to play. So this also opens up the door for a lot of other players. I don't think we see a mass exodus this year, but like this could be the end of LIV golf as we know it. I don't know if you guys saw that press conference a couple of weeks ago where a reporter asked Bryson DeChambeau, like, what's your future with LIV? And basically all he said was, I have 1 year left on my contract. I'm looking forward to playing this year on LIV. I would not be surprised when we see him come back. John Rahm joined a little bit later. He might not come back right away. But I think, with having the best players on tour, obviously there are so many people that I don't get me wrong. Scotty Scheffler, best player on the planet, and I don't think it's particularly close. But people want a little more from him. They want a little more passion. They want a little more pizzazz from him. You're not going to get it. So getting some of these other characters back on the tour, like a Brooks, like a Patrick Reed, I think that's going to help sell the game a little more. And maybe having a guy like Patrick Reed on tour or a guy like Brooks on tour might bring a little bit of personality and a little bit of zest out of Scotty Scheffler. So I'm looking forward to this year. I think it's going to be a great year, and just even some of the other upcoming games. It's going to be a really fun year to be a golf fan.
Pat, another thing that we can look forward to, in addition to the golf season, the Super Bowl, is the Olympics coming up here. And I was browsing over at Coolbet. There's some futures for the hockey, which of course we'll all be dialed into. What kind of catches your eye looking at the Olympic hockey futures, and maybe any other Winter Olympic sports that catch your eye?
Well, I have a hard time when it comes to the hockey Olympics futures because it's one team and it's one team only, and you're not getting great value on it. Exactly. And I don't really believe in the happiness hedge. I know some people have no problem betting either going all in and betting on your team. That's something that I can't do because I believe I mushed my teams, but I also am not in the business of going against my team and at least getting a payout if they lose. So probably stay away from that. During the tournament, we're going to have basically the exact same offering that you would get in an NHL a game. So player props, you'll get totals, money line, spread, you name it. So I'm going to be sprinkling a lot when it comes to player props. One thing that I think has been awesome is seeing for the Curling Nation special so far at Coolbet. It is unbelievable the amount of options that you have. So for example, to not win a medal in curling, you've got USA plus 150, Canada's 30-1. I think don't even bother thinking that because I think we could see Canada possibly coming away with 3 medals in all 3 of their disciplines. So with that being said, Canada to win 3 medals in curling plus 235. I think they're no doubt the favorites to win the women's. Men's might be a little bit trickier, but I think for them to finish on the podium and then for them to finish on the podium for mixed doubles, I think at plus 235, that is incredible value considering, just the powerhouse Canada historically has been in curling. If you've been following curling, especially, with the Grand Slam of curling, there's a lot of other big nations, though, that are, nipping at Canada's heels, especially at the men's game. That Great Britain team is certainly going to be a force to be reckoned with. Sweden's got a great squad as well. So some of those ones I'm really looking forward to, to sprinkling on. But Canada to win 3 medals in curling, not 3 gold medals, just 3 medals. That's it. Plus 235. I love the value on that one.
Yes, you do the men's and the women's and the mixed as well. Moving on from Olympics, big event taking place this weekend that you can wager on. I know you're fired up for this one, Pat. The men's and women's Royal Rumble, and Coolbet does have odds for that into the squared circle. Anything catch your eye for? I know Hustler's always trying to pick a winner. He's done it successfully. Roman Reigns, the favorite right now, plus 110 in the men's Rumble.
That's the only unfortunate thing in the men's. I don't think there's a whole ton of value in the winner. I think Roman Reigns, the favorite right now, plus 110. I think it was a little bit of a longer odds. He still was the outright favorite since opening, but I think he's going to win it. He's one of the greatest of all time. He's coming back, and I think they want him headlining one of the nights at WrestleMania. So I have a hard time not seeing him win. If there is someone else, Braun Breaker plus 250. If you are a fan of wrestling from the 90s, you might remember the Steiners. Well, one of the Steiners' son is Braun Breaker, so there is some lineage there with Braun Breaker. But he is the guy that they're ready to put over and really, prop this guy up. So I could see Breaker winning at plus 250. The one bet that I don't like the guy, but Brock Lesnar plus 250 to finish inside the top 4. Listen, they still prop Brock Lesnar up like this big, bad, unstoppable force, but he is not going to be able to last, deep into this Royal Rumble. And I don't think they're going to, have him come into the Royal Rumble and then get eliminated right away. Like if he's coming in, he's going to be one of the last guys to go over the ropes. And a guy like Braun Breaker, a guy like Roman Reigns has the power to be able to do that. So the fact that we're getting him at plus 200 is fantastic value. And of course, it's Winnipeg, WST. We got to talk about it. Chris Jericho to enter the Royal Rumble. These rumors of him coming back to WWE have been happening since his AEW contract has come out. I am shocked. And minus 167 is a little bit juicy for my liking, but I think this is a fun bet. Sprinkle a little bit on Jericho. I might build myself a squared circle parlay, put it in the combo cards and include this one, but I don't see a world where we don't see Jericho coming down and entering the Royal Rumble. So at minus 167, a little bit juicy, but I think it's a fun bet. And I wouldn't be very, very surprised if Jericho did not make it back to the WWE at such a premium event like the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, and the Royal Rumble taking place 1 p.m. on Saturday, and because it is in Saudi Arabia. They got the real Royal Rumble, not the greatest Royal Rumble. This time it happens when you shell out the big bucks. Pat, here, we'll wind it down. NHL tonight, any game that you're looking at here?
Well, Connor was hyping them up, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, but the Buffalo Sabres, hottest team in the NHL right now. They've been an absolute wagon, and they've been one of the hottest teams at home as well. They're getting some solid value. I know it's minus 125, so if you want to go money line, be a little bit safe, or you could go on the three-way money line. I had to bring some sort of Toronto angle as well, and you could not pay me to bet on the Toronto Maple Leafs right now. It is in shambles. We are in a sad state. We're talking about being sellers at the deadline. We're talking about retooling, rebuilding, firing coaches, firing GMs. So couldn't bet on them. Not going to bet against them. But I did see that Bobby McMahon is plus 101 to record a single point. He's playing on the top line with Austin Matthews and Max Domi. Despite how bad the Leafs have been as of late, Matthews is heating up. He's putting up a lot of goals. And I think it's been 3 straight games now that Bobby McMahon's played on Matthews' line, and he's recorded a point in every single one of those games. So give me Bobby McMahon a point plus 101, and maybe I'll parlay that with Sabres just money line.
Pat, it's been great having you on. Thanks for all the great insight. Looking forward to getting back to you next week when we fully dive in to the Super Bowl.
I can't wait for that. If you have any notes about the national anthem, Remis, please feel free to send them my way, because that is one of my favorite bets. But the only thing is, guys, it could set your day off, because usually it goes anthem and then right in a coin toss. But at the Grey Cup in Winnipeg, went 2 for 2, boom, boom, right away. And boom. I'm hoping to take those positive vibes from Princess Auto, bringing it to my couch while I'm watching the Super Bowl. So
love it.
Tails never fails, and we'll see what happens with the anthem.
Perfect. There he is, Pat Gregoire of Coolbet. Thank you so much for coming on, and make sure, the deposit bonus, WST SB60, up to double your deposit up to $60. Connor, you got your eye. Last show, Tuesday, when the Jets were playing, I was looking at the odds, and I said Mark Scheifele plus 200. That seems low, and he scored. Is there anything you're looking at here for the Jets tonight for any of the wagers?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. That top line is back together, so you'd like to look at their point totals. You'd like to look at all those things. Gabriel Velarde minus 107 to get a point. But again, they're going to get the Sorelli-Hagel matchup on the road. Tampa Bay controls who they want out there against them. Tampa Bay is one of the best teams in the league. That is looking, not great from that perspective. But I think Velarde liked how he played on Tuesday and liked how he's playing as of late. Goes back up to that top line. I'm looking at him minus 107 for a point and for a goal plus 305. But Remis, the one game outside of Jets Lightning that I'm going to have my eye on tonight is the Montreal Canadiens and the Colorado Avalanche, because it's in the Bell Center and the Habs are wearing their home reds, but the Avs are wearing their Quebec Nordique blues on the road. So we got a nice little color on color matchup there, jersey matchup, elite jersey matchup alert in the Montreal Avalanche game.
No, I don't think it's an elite jersey matchup. I think it's offensive. I hate it. They shouldn't be doing it. I think it's stomping on the grave of the Quebec Nordiques. It's wrong. It shouldn't happen. If the Coyotes ever wore Jets jerseys, I would be for sure opposed. Not cool.
Interesting.
I don't like it. It's just to sell jerseys and just piss all over Nordique fans. It's not the Nordiques. It's the Colorado Avalanche. Well, I agree. Actually, I will agree. It does look cool. Okay, but I don't think it's right. I can't support this.
Fair enough. I mean, I'm not going out there buying the jerseys. I'm just going to flip it on and think it looks cool. But I did think it was kind of crazy when they did the Nordiques versus Whalers, and every graphic pack was the same, and the scoreboard was Nordiques Whalers. It wasn't even Hurricanes Avs at that point. It was completely different. So, I don't know. I don't see it as dancing on the grave, but that's a good point. I mean, if the Coyotes ever wore Jets things, I'd probably feel a little bit different too.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't like it, but I'll tune in. It looks cool. If I had to pick some other games tonight, I always like the West Coast action. We do have Oilers hosting the Sharks, Leafs in Seattle, Vancouver hosting Anaheim, and Dallas hosting Vegas. Coincidentally, those teams are playing each other, Connor, and they did announce today another, I don't really want to call it an outdoor game, but another Stadium Series game.
Yes. Vegas
and Dallas at Jerry World, AT&T Stadium. That's a pretty cool venue for an outdoor one, right?
Well, outdoor / mostly indoor. Again, the Winter Classic being Florida this year, again, inside a baseball thing, like, yeah, okay, you can open up a window and call it outside, I guess. But still a very cool venue, Jerry World, where the Dallas Cowboys play. And I don't, they seem to be going more to the south with, again, the Rangers and the Panthers. Now they're going Vegas and Dallas. This was a rumored one. I'm looking forward to it. I love that the marquee games like this. I'm trying to hold back from calling it an outdoor game because I feel like they're going to close all the windows in that place. It's just going to be a hockey game in a football stadium. But I still am going to be tuned in no matter what in the Stadium Series. Would prefer it to be a full outdoors. I like the other one that was announced. I don't know if we ever talked about it. The Avs and the Mammoth playing at the Utah Utes football stadium, which is outdoors, nice backdrop with the mountains. That'll be a very cool one. Utah, new franchise, they get an outdoor game, and I'll be looking forward to this one as well as the Lightning and Bruins this Sunday. That'll be fun.
I'm going to tune in. I'm seeing some imagery of the pirate theme. So I think it's exciting. Outdoor games, they're a celebration. The city, I don't think you're watching like an outdoor game out of your market, but there is excitement here growing for the Heritage Classic at Princess Auto Stadium in October as we await the alumni game as well. Not everyone doing the alumni games. They've kind of gone away, but I like what the Jets are doing, bringing back some 2.0 guys. And maybe they're just doing it so everyone can give Dustin Byfuglien a final salute. And I think we're all okay with that. You mentioned the Nordiques Habs jersey matchup tonight. There's another jersey matchup that I never thought we would see. The Utah Mammoth are playing the Hartford Whalers, and shout out to Chris Creamer of SportsLogos.net. Made this NHL 94 themed mock-up. Look at this jersey matchup. What do you think? Carolina wearing again, I don't like it. I don't think they
dancing on the grave. It's a joke.
It's not right. It's not right. What Carolina should be doing is going back to their original jerseys when they moved over instead of those awful jerseys they're wearing now.
Correct.
But
agreed.
I get it looks cool, but I don't think it's right. You shouldn't get to do that. So I might be in the minority here, Connor.
No,
but that's how I
definitely
feel.
There's definitely some substance to that. 100%. I'm looking forward to, away from that, I brought up how Utah's in an outdoor game next year against the Avalanche. They have all the colors needed to make an absolutely gorgeous outdoor game jersey. So I have very high expectations for what a Utah Mammoth outdoor game jersey will look like. I think they'll go to the baby blue. I hope they do. And if they do, they'll probably be stealing a lot of my money and a lot of other people's money because I think they have a great color scheme. The Winnipeg Ice color theme to make a really nice jersey.
You're getting a Utah jersey, Mammoth?
Yeah, why not? Logan Cooley's a sick player. Dylan Gunther. They got some nice players. Again, if it's a nice jersey, I have high expectations, but we'll see.
Baby blue, we'll see. I did like their jersey where it just said Utah on it. Normally I don't, but they do have the Mammoth branding this year. Well, Connor, it's been a great show. We're going to end now because the Winnipeg Jets and Tampa Bay Lightning. Puck drops at 6. Got to throw this on the podcast. We've had a packed show. Got to a lot of topics. Thank you, Greg Linnelli, Lightning host. A good conversation with him. John Hodge on the Bombers. Brandon Rewucki, some Jets conversation. Daniel Fink with the Manitoba Moose. 2 games this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, 2 p.m. And Pat Gregoire of Coolbet, who we just went all the topics with Pat. Royal Rumble, golf, Olympics, hockey, Super Bowl. So much to discuss. So, Connor, any last words here? Any snack of choice for tonight's Jets game that you'll be selecting?
Yeah, Remis, I think I've said on this show before, I'm a big popcorn guy, so keeping it simple tonight with that. But no, looking forward to this game. Again, a few players on Tampa Bay, on Team Canada, so this will be an interesting one tonight. How does the Scheifele line play? Does Scheifele have a big game against John Cooper if you want to run with that narrative tonight? But no, great show today. Great to hear from Pat, John Hodge on Tim White. Big signing for the Bombers last night. And Brandon Rewucki, of course, and Greg Linnelli earlier on. So this was a great show. Looking forward to tomorrow, Friday edition of WST Remis, and a marble race to cap it all off.
Yes, will be exciting. Well, not want to say final week, but our final full week before the Olympics. As Olympic,
yes.
There's some games, some events Wednesday around noon, and the opening ceremonies a week Friday. So exciting times. We'll have so much to discuss. And there it is, another Thursday edition. Shout out to all the sponsors. Make this possible. Without them, we would not be here. Winnipeg Jets, Uptown Alley, Rollies Transfer, St. Vital Dental, Canadian Club, Princess Auto, Chud's Power Sports, Manitoba Battery, Clean Line, Little Brown Jug, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, and Coolbet. And yes, Wednesday we will be at the Jets Habs for the last Winnipeg Jets game before the Olympic break. WinnipegJets.com/WST for tickets. For Connor Hrabchak, I'm Michael Remis. This has been another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Bye-bye.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.